Thank you, everyone. Good evening and welcome to the 23rd of January Council meeting with the City of Onkaparinga. It's lovely to see so many community members with us tonight in the chamber. I will go through a few things for those of you who are perhaps new to council meetings. It's really important that this is a safe place and everyone gets a chance to be heard and be seen, so I really appreciate respect around that. And I do have some kind of powers under the Local Government Act to move people on should that not, you'll be unable to do that. Hopefully we won't need to call on those things. We do have people who are here tonight who are our visitors, and we really appreciate that. If you do get up to speak, and for those of you who are in the gallery, there is a chance that you will be on the public record because we do record these with audio and vision. So just be aware of that, particularly those of you who are doing deputations. You're very welcome. We're really pleased to be here. We do like to be able to do our business in as open and transparent way. So thank you, those of you from the public who are here tonight. We'll commence our meeting. Just letting you all know there is an apology from Councillor Rilett. There are no leaves of absences. And I'd like to ask all the elected members if they'd be willing to stand for our pledge, and people in the gallery, you're very welcome to stand as well. But this is our pledge to you. And if we can say this together, councillors, we recognise the city's considerable natural and cultural heritage, including thousands of years of traditional ownership by Ghana, and the more recent contribution from people either born here or who have migrated here. As we meet together, we build on this heritage by respecting and listening to each other, thinking clearly, being receptive to new ideas, speaking honestly, and deciding wisely for the current and future well-being of those we serve. Thanks, everyone. And I'll begin with the confirmation of the minutes. Do I have a mover? Councillor Bell?
Yes, I'll move.
And any questions or no. Councillor Pimpala?
It's a second, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Debate? All those in favour? Motion is carried unanimously. We have no adjourned business, sorry for the in-joke, but no leave of absence. The next item on the agenda is the Mayor's report, and I just want to use this just a moment to acknowledge Councillor Rilett, who has resigned, as you would read in my report, and he's unable to be with us this evening, which would have been his last meeting. And just on behalf of all my fellow councillors, I just want to wish him all the best for the future as he continues to serve his community in other ways. He'll be moving into state, I understand, and his resignation does set the clock now for a by-election for the ward of Pimpala. The Electoral Commission has been advised of this vacancy, and the Electoral Commission then now has responsibility to make the work they need to do to get people on the electoral roll, to call for candidates, hold the election, and then we will fill that vacancy. So that is the work of the Electoral Commission, and we just wanted to note that in my report, and wish him all the very best for the future. Do I have someone to move my report? Councillor Eaton and Councillor Platten, you seconding?
Yes.
Any questions? Any debate? All those in favour? That item is carried. Thank you very much. Now we move into that part of the meeting, which are our deputations, and we have 3 deputations this evening. Each deputation I will just briefly introduce, and you'll all have 8 minutes. You are able to, every one of the deputations tonight have agreed to take any questions from you, councillors. We won't be putting questions to staff during this period. It's an opportunity for you as councillors to be informed by our deputations. So our first deputation is from Hannah Trevelyan, and I think she's got a few people joining her as well, with Beck, Louise and Tamara, and they're from the Southern Stars Netball Club. You're very welcome, and if you'd like to come up here. and you can get some support from Sue, who will tell you how to work the. So we have 8 minutes for your deputation, and please make good use of it. Please speak closely into the microphone so that people at the back can hear, and also that's really helpful for our recording purposes. And your time starts now.
Good evening. I'm Hannah Trevelyan, and for the past 6 years, I've had the privilege of serving as president of Southern Stars Netball Club. I'm also a player and a coach. Netball in Australia is not just a sport, but a thriving community. The Australian Sports Commission latest figures show that a notable 5% rise in participation, with over 1 million players now involved in Australia. This increase aligns with a remarkable time in Australian netball history, with the Australian Diamonds winning all competitions last year, including the Netball World Cup. The Kelpies men's team also won their premiership, and the Adelaide Thunderbirds also won their first premiership. At Southern Stars, we mirror this success, and with a strong governance and steadfast commitment to continue expanding participation at a grassroots level. However, to truly achieve our goals and to continue contributing positively to our community, we require a solid physical foundation. Facilities such as dedicated courts, a functional canteen, club rooms for inductions, training and events, and adequate storage are just amenities that are essential to help our club grow to the next level.
Hello everyone, I'm Louise, and my journey with Stars spans several roles. Currently I have the honour of being the vice president of the club. It's our 50th anniversary this year, and we are so proud of the incredible journey that Stars has taken since its inception in 1974. As you can see, Stars is a diverse family and has members from the youngest age groups to the crucial pre-teen and teenagers, all the way through to our esteemed seniors. Reflecting on 2023, we have fielded an impressive 46 teams comprising 463 players. Beyond the playing field, our community extends to families, friends, dedicated coaches, umpires and more. Here's our membership growth over the past few years. Notably, we experienced a significant upswing after Hannah joined the committee in 2017. Her leadership brought fresh faces, positive change and a surge in enthusiasm. The minor dip in 21 attributed to post-COVID challenges demonstrates the resilience that our community has during the tough times. This is where you'll find us in a tiny, tiny shed. This tiny shed houses everything from training and game equipment to balls, barbecues, and even our trophies, which we have no space for. Some are on top of the fridge, but most are sadly tucked away in boxes of volunteers' homes. It's a constant juggling act and a shared challenge for everyone involved. Managing a small canteen here becomes a necessity for fundraising, as we lack access to other facilities in Sooner. Regretfully, we can only host this canteen a few times a year during home rounds in the Southern Hills competition, and this limits the money that we can fundraise. Stars holds a special place in all of our hearts. Our committee is a dedicated group of professionals, men and women alike, driven by a passion for building a robust community with grassroots netball. We're a club where sisters, brothers, mums, dads, aunties, uncles, cousins, everyone really, all support each other and play together. Our connection with the local community runs deep, with parents actively coaching our teams. Watching players grow with us from under 19s into seniors is very special, and for us it's more than just a sports club. It's about fostering friendships, creating connections and providing a support network. We stand by our members through thick and thin, supporting them through illness, injury and life-changing events. Stars proudly holds the title of the most affordable netball club in Aldinga, and we're committed to maintaining that accessibility. However, balancing low fees while still offering the best to our members is becoming increasingly challenging without the infrastructure to set up more fundraising opportunities. Despite being a strong community-minded club, the absence of a permanent home makes that physical sense of community seem elusive.
I'm Beck Prestwood. I'm the coaching director at Stars, and I'm a player, coach and umpire. My 2 daughters also play and coach at Stars. My sister plays and coaches, and my 10-year-old niece plays and is coached by one of my daughters. I'm invested in this club and I'm passionate and motivated to see it succeed. I'm up and rove in the southeast and sporting clubs for our connection to community. A couple of years ago, my daughter was rushed to hospital and they found she had a pulmonary embolism, and we almost lost her. Amongst all the chaos, with doctors rushing around, she asked when she could get back to netball. I want every person in our club to feel that sense of connection. Southern Stars is more than just a netball club. It is a community of people who are much like family. We support each other in hard times, cheer each other in good times, and some of my best friends I've met at this club. We are seeking your support and understanding of the importance of establishing a contract with Sooner for the future of our club to have the basics that every major club has, Even clubs smaller than ours have more. Many netball clubs have faced decline due to the absence of a stable home, and we fear that our fate may follow the same path without your assistance. Our club is at the mercy of those that make decisions about the infrastructure we use, and we have no say. The council report shows that there is no location in Onkaparinga area for us except at Sooner, and Sooner has in writing that they are unable to provide us with the facilities we need. While Sooner takes the blame at council, and council tell us Sooner is suitable, we are stuck in the middle with a future that is in doubt. If you look at all other Sooner and Noarlunga clubs, we still maintain a strong membership. Ladybirds, who have the shed next to us at Sooner, they used to be one of the biggest clubs in the competition, but they have now reduced to 9 teams. We don't want this for our thriving club. We have previously shared space with McLaren Vale Netball Club during the Sooner court upgrades. We worked with their home and away program to host our home rounds and use their courts, club rooms and canteen. Their volunteers collaborated with us, and we were able to use the facilities on a trust basis that we would leave it as we found it. We only paid the same as what we would pay at Sooner. McLaren Vale has offered the space to us again, but it's out of our member catchment area, and during summer it's not available due to tennis. You can see from the finances that we had almost triple the gross profit in canteen, and this was also with fewer home games. Increased participation, we want to expand our Starlet clinic for those young ones, which is run by our young leaders to teach young children how to play netball, and something we do at no cost. We want to bring in a different kind of social competition that isn't already available in the South, that's inclusive. A competition for people who are deaf or have sensory issues. We want a space where our members can congregate after a game, have a drink, eat some food and talk. We are not here to criticise any organisation, but it is a real challenge, and us as volunteers, we are tired of pushing for our club's basic needs. We need help. We want to collaborate. We have so much to offer. We just need the basics. A secure space for our members.
So Southern Stars Netball Club is more than just a group of players. We're a passionate community of volunteers and members dedicated to making a positive impact. As we approach our AGM in March, we are poised to expand our committee from 13 to 22 committee positions, reflecting on our commitment to growth and inclusivity. We've already had an overwhelming response of nominations for the positions, which underscores the enthusiasm and support within our community. Our mission extends beyond the court. We want to strive to create a safe space, an inclusive space where individuals are encouraged to be themselves and engage in healthy physical activity and enjoying the spirit of the game that connects us all. We're committed to keeping netball accessible and affordable to all those who wish to participate. However, to fulfill these aspirations, we need your support to establish a solid foundation, a foundation compromising of physical infrastructure that will not only meet our current needs, but also pave the way for future generations. This ensures that Southern Stars Netball Club continues to be a beacon of community spirit for the next 50 years and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Well done. Did you play wing attack? I'm just checking now. Who would like to ask a question? Councillor Wilkes.
I'll ask some questions, please. Thank you so much for your presentation. I can definitely see the enthusiasm and the passion in your club, and it's great to know that you guys are doing so much for our community. So I was just wondering, if you've been around for 50 years, why haven't you had your own courts before?
We've definitely tried. In the 6 years that I've been a part of Southern Stars, I've contacted Minister Hilliard and also Minister Rishworth as well, and they have written to the council, the previous CEO, Councillor Scott Ashby, and we were informed that Sooner is suitable for our needs. Okay.
So why hasn't an agreement been reached between you and Sooner before?
We've been informed from Sooner that they don't have the infrastructure to support us.
Okay. So if they have 18 courts, how many of those courts are you requesting that you use?
So we currently use 6 courts and we would like to continue using 6 courts, but we don't actually have a contract with them or a hire agreement or anything like that. So we have a future that is unsure and uncertain.
So if you use 6 of the 18 courts, have you ever seen all 18 courts filled at training?
Never.
Okay. What is your current agreement with Sooner?
We don't have one. So we contact them before each season with the amount of courts that we need, and we hope that we have that granted each time. When Sooner previously had 12 courts and there was more clubs training there, such as Vikings and Ranella, who now have their own courts, we used to have to make sure that we get in first so that we could have enough courts for all our teams.
And what happens now that there's 18 courts?
Well, as I said, there's only us and another club that have 2 courts there. So there's 10 courts available.
Okay. So you guys asked, your request for 6 courts seems very reasonable. So how long have you been looking for the courts or trying to secure these courts?
Yeah, so over the last 6 years, we've definitely tried in different avenues, but we weren't actually aware that we could go down this avenue to seek the council for assistance. Then I heard about the hard courts review, and obviously we put in our information through that. And with Jeremy and Nick, we had several different meetings who then connected us up with yourself and another councillor as well. And since then, we've been trying to push further for this.
Okay, thank you. I might have some further questions, but for now.
Yeah.
Councillor Cornelius.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions. Have you ever held a sublease with Sooner?
No.
So how do you, when you did use the facility, how was that negotiated to be able to use the courts?
It was either through email or with a meeting.
And did you paid to use those courts, and how
We
much
did.
did you pay to use those courts
So
the time?
yeah, so it's been a continuation throughout the season. So every season, I guess it's just an assumption that we will be there.
Okay.
However, just because of what we want to try and achieve with the future, we need to know that we are going to have a place that we can come and train and play netball and do our activities.
And who's stopping you from having a sublease?
We just haven't been able to communicate with Sooner to have a sublease.
To organise that. All right then. And you accept that there's 2 issues. So one is the sublease getting you there, and then the second issue is the facilities and all the requirements. If the sublease could be negotiated, brokered through council staff, through elected members, if that portion could be done, would you be happy for that as the first stage, and then the second stage would be the requirements that you need at the site? Because it can't.
Yeah, so I guess there's 2 parts to it. So we
Yes.
definitely need to secure our future so
Yes.
that we actually have somewhere where we can train.
Mhm.
And the second part to it is the way that the current economy is, we need to be able to keep our fees affordable. And other than raising the fees, we have no way to fundraise. So we need a canteen that we can function in, to be able to fundraise.
Okay, so you're saying even if you did have a sublease, it wouldn't be viable?
It needs to include, I think what we're saying is, yeah, it'd be great to have a sublease, but there's some things that we need within it rather than just a court hire thing. Right? Yeah.
Okay, and can you give me a bit of background of how we actually got to this point?
Yeah, sure. I did write this down.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned, I wrote to Minister Hilliard, several times over the years. And I've had meetings with her as well, with Katrine. And then we got a letter from Scott Ashby back in 2020, and he said that there was going to be further developments at Sooner and we should just stay there. We wrote again in the same year because Marshall government announced an increase in grassroots sporting clubs for 25 million. And we wrote again and said, we really want to be a part of this. We want to grow and we want to have a place that we can call home. And then in 2021, the Sooner courts were redeveloped. And then the hard court review came about in 2021 as well. We put forward our information, as I've mentioned, and we were told that there was enough courts in the council to accommodate for all the clubs. But we felt that it's missing the fact of what the actual essence of a club is and what we need to be able to fundraise without hitting the pockets of our members constantly. And so that's why we went to council, and then we got connected with Councillor Wilkes, who we explored different areas. It wasn't that we were to stay at Sooner, but council came back and said that Sooner is our only option for the size of our club. So yeah, that's where we go. Sorry.
Councillor Platten.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your deputation. Just a question around your comfort zone with courts. Have you ever been put in a position that you felt like you wouldn't be able to get the courts that you require, and that's why you're requesting a sublease, or do you feel like you're always going to be able to get the courts that you require?
Yeah, so I think the main issue we have is not around the courts. What we want to have is, the main part is, we want a home. We want a base where we have proper storage facilities, where we have a proper canteen, where we can fundraise, where our members we can have our trophies up to show everyone that it feels like a home. We've never really had trouble getting courts at Sooner, except that, well,
when there was 12 courts, there was definitely problems and having to stagger training sometimes over 3 hours. I can't see the future problem now that there's 18 courts getting courts. Sometimes season to season we're allocated different courts, but with less clubs training at Sooner, we're getting more consistency.
Yeah, but the main things we're asking for are more around the infrastructure that we need to have access to do the things that we want to do, to be what we want to be.
Do you have another question?
So,
Where's he gone?
here
Here we go.
so
Sorry.
in reference to the sublease, it's more about access to amenities like the canteen. Can you just reiterate again for me what canteen access you have now and what would be your preferred option?
Yeah. So we're not looking to run a canteen when Sooner is doing business, when they have their own competition. We want to do this on Saturdays so that we can, as I said, fundraise. We have a makeshift canteen at the moment. So we have a barbecue and eskies and a fridge as well. And we also bring just lollies and things like that. If we, as I mentioned, when we used the McLaren Vale canteen, it was a lot more equipped. There was other things that we could access. So when we did use the McLaren Vale, they moved their things out for us, and we would come in every couple of weeks. So yeah, so we would like a better structure that within a canteen that's a lot more functional than a makeshift canteen that we've just pulled out of our tiny little shed.
With one power plant.
Councillor Dew.
Thank you, Hannah and team, for that. Appreciate it. I've got a few questions. One was in terms of Sooner. So I used to play for Stars and spend a lot of time at Sooner, and I recall it being quite a small space. And I guess the growing needs of your club and what you envisage for Sooner, because they use it as an administrative purpose. You know, they've got the umpire room and scorecards and everything happening in that space. So how you actually imagine that that's fit for purpose for you currently going forward?
So the time that we actually do want to use the space, the facilities, it's not currently being used. So we would be there at training and we can't actually get into the club rooms. If we do expand on the Thursdays as well, we would want to be able for people to come in. We wanted to do the coaches inductions in there because this season that we did our coaches induction, we did them in the shed and we were freezing.
Mm-hmm.
So we had 30 people sitting around and a fully warm club room sitting there not being used. So and then definitely on the Saturdays where we play in the Southern Hills competition, having that canteen access been able for umpires to come together and be briefed before the day, before their games and things like that. We're not wanting to use any of their admin areas or anything like that. It's just a space where people can come in out of cover, undercover, just to be able to come together.
Sure. Okay. I wondered, so we've obviously had a report that sort of specified some locations that council have looked into and evaluated. But I wondered from your perspective, are you satisfied with what was brought to the table? And do you feel that there's actually other spaces that might be better catered, like you might cater better to your growing needs rather than being based in an association?
Yeah. So, yes, it was explored. So originally when we were working with council, we said it would be better to move away from sooner. And we wanted to be aligned with maybe some other sporting clubs as well. As you would see from the list, Port Noarlunga was explored because they are a smaller club and we felt that we would have been able to fit really well there. But they, that's still, yeah, that's sort of not something that they felt comfortable with because we are a big club. We also did look at River Road as well, and we were told that that was an overflow site. So that wasn't suitable from a council point of view for us. It does have 4 courts. However, we would have looked to get some state and federal funding to try and expand that for our growing club. But we would have worked with that. But we do have the 6 courts that we do use at Sooner every season.
And education sites like Burrianda and other places like that?
So Houghton was explored as well. Houghton has been, from what I understand, earmarked for the South Adelaide
Netball Club. Yep. Okay. I wondered, I know you're here for your club, so you might not be able to talk to other experiences, but I wondered if this would be a precedent or if how other clubs actually facilitate and coordinate times with Sooner, or would it mean that we potentially have to go into subleases or, you know, arrangements then with each other club because, you know, we've got to take into consideration all clubs?
I think potentially it could set a standard of clubs being able to go into a sublease, and I think that's actually really good security for clubs going forward. There's definitely enough room at Sooner for that. If it looks to like I said, when we want to use the canteen facilities, they're not being used at the moment. So if that was to change, then we're all for being collaborative on that. If there was a club that wanted to do something else on a Thursday night as well, then, you know, we want to accommodate that. We're currently in the opposite side where people don't want to collaborate with us. So we don't want to stop any club from growing and improving either, if that's what they choose to do. And I don't think our way forward is going to hinder that for any other club.
Sorry, Mark.
Yeah, sure.
Going back to that though, of the 21 clubs that currently play at Sooner, only 5 don't have their own netball courts and club rooms externally from Sooner. And of those 5 clubs, the 2 Southern Stars and Ladybirds, we have 22 teams currently, they have 9. The others have 1 or 2, they're more social clubs. So most clubs in the area already have great facilities of their own and they just play netball at Sooner. I guess what I was thinking about was how like you guys have aspirations to expand, potentially Sooner also have those aspirations, and so then what does that mean and look like? I'm just trying to weigh both up. So the fundraising, like how creative and beyond canteens and things like that, you know, the work.
So the main, if you look at clubs like Aldinga, they have a very healthy bank account. So they have a lot because they have a canteen and they have a social competition on a Thursday night as well. So they have a lot that they can offer to the community. Being able to generate funds, as you saw, we only made $1,100 in one season using the canteen with our makeshift canteen. It's not enough. It's not sustainable. If we want to continue going forward, we would have to increase our membership fees, and then we would have to do fundraising like Bunnings barbecues, which we've got coming up. where we struggle to get volunteers who want to come out on a Saturday, especially when it's a long weekend. You can sell chocolates, but you don't really make a huge amount of that, and everyone does that. You can run quiz nights and things like that, which we've tried all of those things. But the biggest and best generator that you can do for revenue is definitely a canteen.
Thank you. And then one last question. I wondered about how you see, so it seems sort of a little bit operational in terms of with council and those sorts of, with SUNA and that sort of thing between, and I wondered the role that you see council playing.
Yeah.
And why? Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like council's role obviously is to be involved in the community and to get the most out of their facilities. So I feel like we're only asking to use those facilities when they're not being used, and to create something out of them. And what I see council's role is to see those facilities are vacant and to bring us all into a room, because that actually hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
We've been talking about it, and I've been trying to every which way I can to communicate with everyone along the way, because I think this needs to be an open discussion on how it's going to work, rather than just being told, no, it can't happen.
Sure.
And so I feel like if we could all sit in a room and we could all negotiate something that's going to work and it's going to help our club and maybe future clubs as well, I think that can only be positive.
Thank you.
Doesn't want to go, sorry. Is it you want?
Thank you, Hannah. Again, your passion is shining through. I was just going to quickly ask, because there's been quite a big talk about the club rooms. My understanding is there's two keys, one for the club room and one for the courts. So if you were to have access to the club rooms, obviously that would be a trust basis. But do you have access to any of those two keys?
Yeah, so we have access to the courts, so we can open the courts up, we open the toilets, we turn the lights on. We also have SUNA at times contact us. For example, next week there's going to be a match played on the Monday when we're training, sorry. So we're actually going to help facilitate so that they can get access to the SUNA courts. So there is already a trust there that we're going to look after what we have. And I think also if you have a sublease, then you can even also write that into a sublease to say what the expectations are.
Awesome. So you've already got some trust there, and you're already doing great things. So talk of the canteen's been really strong. Have you ever used the shared use model of a canteen before with any other clubs as you're proposing to do with SUNA?
Other than the McLaren Vale.
What happened at McLaren Vale?
So we had access to all their club room, their whole canteen, to their fridge, their pie warmers, everything like that. So we were able to fully utilise everything. They would, because they would have home games as well. So we programmed it to make sure that we weren't clashing when they were home. And they would just pack everything up. The volunteers, they would put them into little boxes or put them into cupboards. And they would they even allowed us to access the drinks in their fridge. And on a trust basis, they said, let us know how much you spend and just pay us for those.
Okay. Excellent. That sounds functional. I just wanted to ask a really quick question. I don't need too much detail on it, but what's your sort of current response rate by email? Because you've sort of suggested that's how you contact SUNA, but what is your current response rate when you do send an email requesting?
Would probably, in terms of anything in general, or
maybe an example. What was the liquor licensing one?
Yeah. So I've contacted SUNA several times. So when we do something with courts, we generally, within a week, we would get a response that we can have access. So the last response that we had for the summer season, we were told that, yes, we can have 6 courts, and that only one other club was training, and they would be using specific courts. So we just chose the courts that we wanted. In other instances, when we give feedback on competition, there can be cases where I don't get a response.
Oh, at all?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Bill.
Thank you, and thanks, girls, for coming in and giving that presentation, that deputation. most of the questions have been asked, but I think I've got a few left here. You mentioned you do pay an annual fee or
We pay a court hire fee,
court hire fee. Is that for annually?
per hour.
Per hour. So you pay that every month or quarterly or?
Yes, it's billed, I'm the secretary, I'm Tamara. We're billed monthly. So we report our usage on a monthly basis and then we're invoiced within a week for that.
Okay, and that, have you gotten a contract on that that's clear that it's just for the courts or?
We usually, if there's any discussion, we refer back to an email if you want to call that an agreement. But there's nothing signed, no contract.
Okay, and is it common for clubs and associations or clubs to not have a contract or a lease with the association, I should say? Is that common, do you know?
As far as I know, with sporting groups and things like that, the sporting like at Christmas Beach, for example, they would all have, I assume they would have subleases.
You think they would have
Yeah.
a contract of sorts?
Yeah, when you look at the example of, I'm involved in the Christmas Beach Sports and Social Club Committee too, I'm on that one. There's definitely agreement there that we sign and have, you know, you must do this many events a year at the facilities and things like that. You know, it's definitely agreements in place.
Okay, and one more question, I think. Essentially, this has been going on, or you've been trying to negotiate something, what, for 4 years? 6 years, okay. And have you sought outside help of any kind or asked anybody if they can recommend someone to assist you independently for negotiation?
No.
No one like that. Netball South Australia isn't an organisation that you would use?
Netball Australia isn't structured to do that.
Sorry?
Netball Australia and Netball SA aren't structured to do that.
Aren't they?
No.
Okay, well, online it seems to have a grievance and dispute policy, that's all. And I just wondered whether Sooner had one of their own. No.
Sooner
Okay.
are also bound by Netball SA's grievance policy. So we are all bound by a grievance policy. I wouldn't necessarily say this is a grievance. It's more of we have aspirations for our club and we feel they're not being met and
Yes.
we feel they're not, what's the word? They're not being met and we're not being considered.
Okay,
It's
that
always
could be a
about
grievance in my
everyone
books.
else.
Anyway, they're the only questions I've got. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Fisher.
Once again, thanks ladies for your presentation, and a lot of the questions I had have also been asked. I want to ask the obvious. You're a club that plays under their association at present. Is that correct?
We play into association.
Okay, so is there any scope in the other association that you play to expand if you're not getting what you want from Sooner?
Yeah, so we've explored that. So within the Saturday competition, it's a home and away, which is where we want to set up our canteen for that home when we're home.
Yep.
All the other clubs that play in that Saturday competition, they have a home, they have a canteen, they have their own courts.
Yeah, so I get that. There's no doubt that I get that. But I want to say just some clarification again. What do you want council to actually do? Do you want us to force Sooner to allocate space to you or canteen? And do you really think we could do that?
Well, I don't know that forcing is something that I would recommend. I would like to collaborate. I would like to sit down and I would like council to help us to sit down and say, you have facilities there that aren't being used. And as part of your agreement with us, you need people in those facilities to be using them to the full extent that are available at.
Yeah, okay. And final question, have you actually approached Sooner with your grievances?
Yes.
And what has been the reaction?
I was informed that it would go to the board.
So is that pending, is it? Or is it something that's the throwaway line? Or
It's been probably, I probably spoke to the vice president, how long ago was that been? Yeah, so November last year.
okay, so you need some sort of clarification on where Sooner sit as far as your requests, if you like. Yeah. Thank you.
Councillor Dew.
I don't know why this isn't going tonight. It's just. Sorry, Hannah, you are getting 50,000 questions. The other one was, so if sublease is your end game potentially, more than likely, are you aware, like Netball SA, just give me 2 seconds. Netball SA and other associations. So I know like the multi-purpose sports complexes, like you clearly outlined that, but in terms of you'd pay affiliation fees and you know understand that as well with an association, but in terms of the sublease arrangement, you know, I don't know of contacts having a sublease arrangement with Netball SA at the stadium. Like I'm not really familiar with that, so wondered what that's about versus just, you know, an agreement or requesting a written arrangement.
Yep. So as you gave the example of contacts, they train at the Netball SA stadium.
Yeah.
So their fundraising, how they generate, as they're not considered a grassroots club like we are.
Yep.
So I feel like we're more of a community club. They're definitely really in for it for the netball, for the competition. They've got Premier League teams and things like that, so they play at that state level.
Yep.
So their fees are a lot higher. They get a huge amount of sponsorship as well. That's just not what kind of club we are. We are a grassroots club. They are that city club that you pay a lot of membership fees and they get good sponsors in, and that's how they generate their money. Yeah.
But in terms of agreement, no, you're good because you're spot on for that for sure. But in terms of like legal arrangements and agreements, you know, that being in place, are you aware of those sorts of situations for, and not even just like a peak, like I'm not necessarily talking about the peak organisation, but Southern Hills and other places, are there, Southern Hills isn't a good example, but other places where there's a base, like having sublease arrangements, or could it be like a written, I don't know, service agreement or something like that, that would satisfy the club? Or is it really like you feel like it needs to be formalised?
It's just an agreement. It needs to be formalised. We need to be able to put in writing that this is where we're going to call home for the next 50 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Patton.
Hello. I promise this is my last question. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but way back when, before you had all the questions, you talked about the fact that the communications you've had with Sooner are around, they don't have the infrastructure in place to facilitate an agreement. Have they ever outlined what infrastructure they would need to have that happen, or?
I've just been informed that they are not set up for shared use.
That's the thing.
Okay, there's no further questions. Thank you very much. Really appreciate you coming tonight and telling us your story, and also having sort of a hard quiz number of questions to get through. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. Our next deputation is from Cornelius McGlennon. Cornelius, if you'd like to make your way up here as our netballers leave, that would be great. So those of you who are following online or following the agenda, you will see this on page 15, I think, or 16. So it's item 7.2. Cornelius is a resident on Beach Road, and the item that he will be speaking to is regarding the Beach Road streetscape improvements. And same thing applies, 8 minutes. You'll hear a bell, as you noticed in the last presentation, when there's 2 minutes to go. So it just gives you a little early warning sign. You're very welcome to, I understand you're happy to take questions from elected members afterwards as well.
Yes.
Off you go.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the Mayor and the councillors for hearing us out. I'd just like to introduce myself. My name's Cornelius McGlennon. I'm a spokesperson and resident of Beach Point Apartments on Beach Road, Chris's Beach. We propose a deposition to council members to hear our complaints regarding the proposal to begin works on streetscape area in front of our apartments. I've come to this meeting tonight to voice the reasons why we are requesting the Untitled Council to reconsider the proposed streetscape plan for directly in front of our apartments. I have already had a meeting with, if I get this wrong, Yolanda Bodger regarding the parklet that was put in front of our apartments going back in 2020. I voiced our concern about how it inflicted the people looking into our apartments and the noise levels we were getting at night time from people sitting there drinking, yo-hooing on at night. I then, after speaking to Yolanda, I then had a meeting with with Adam Muller from the Untitled Council regarding the parklet. He came down, had a look at the parklet, stood in my balcony, stood on the street, looked into my apartment and said, what we can do is frost all your glass so people can't see into your apartment. I then said to him afterwards that, one, I don't want my glass frosted because I like to see out my glass, and two, the strata wouldn't allow it. So after speaking to what's his name? Adam, he then informed me that the council had an agreement with the SP Bakery for 1 year. That parklet had to be there for 1 year. It was a legal binding agreement, which is fine, but no one actually approached anybody at the Beach Point Apartments to say, we are having a parklet put right in front of your apartment, which now we're in a fishbowl. Everyone's sitting there looking straight into our apartments. So after that, I'll just go through this. So after speaking to Adam, he said it would be there for 1 year. 1 year only, it'd be taken away after the year, which it was. It was taken away. Now, 4 years later, the council now want to put a full-time parklet in exactly the same spot where the other parklet was, which we did complain about. And they want to put one there, which is going to be a full-time. Now, I had a meeting with Nathan Farrell and Keith. I can't remember Keith's last name. We hereby put forward our reasons why we are opposed to the plans and hope that you appreciate our concerns. We feel that there would be safety concerns, seated persons and pedestrians using the small space. The proposed seating would impose on residents' privacy, as patrons would be able to look straight into our apartments, and we refer to the photos you have on your in front of you. To demonstrate this, the photos will demonstrate how imposing this would be, much like residents living in a fishbowl, with people sitting there looking directly into our apartments. After hours, the public would have access to the proposed seating, and hence their socialising would become quite noisy. This would then be disturbing the peace of residents. The proposed planting of a tree would block the view of the residents as it grows, and it would be a burden to maintain. We feel strongly opposed that there was no consultation with the residents of Beach Point Apartments regarding the planned idea for this space, and if there had been, we would have voiced our concerns then for a better outcome for all persons concerned. We do propose some suggestions on improvements that would benefit the community by supporting disabled drivers with a designated parking space instead of the parklet, providing a proper pedestrian crossing from the park to the other side of a road instead of the parklet, providing parking for cyclists that may wish to use the restaurants as a more favourable outcome. We would like to question the need to remove the drainage to this space as a costly exercise to civil constructions. There is a drainage right where the parklet is, where the parklet's going. That drainage will then have to be removed and replaced somewhere else, which is an extensive cost, which we feel money would be better spent somewhere else. Parklet structure. This was then necessary for similar reasons to have consultation with council together with a petition to be removed. We note that the bakery outside has seating for approximately 40 people, as well as inside seating. So it would be a better option to place more picnic areas in the park across the road or on the Esplanade. So basically what we're saying is the bakery has got 40 seats outside his premises. He's got about another 60 to 70 seating inside his premises. Why are we putting tables and chairs in front of 40? All right. So basically what we're saying is we think the parklet would be better suited for a little restaurant up the road or a shop up the road. They'd have more use out of it than them sitting there looking into our apartments. Basically, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our questions, Councillor Lotus.
Yes. Thank you for your deputation. First question. The overall streetscape plan, you're actually happy with it. It's literally just that parklet at the front. That's the only issue you have.
That's the only thing. We like the whole street thing you do for Beach Road. We think it's great for Beach Road, but not right.
Just that one portion. And second question, I just want to talk about engagement. Was there any engagement with you, letterbox drops, I don't know, door knocking, any sort of those sort of things?
The only reason why this came to head is because we travelled a fair bit. So we came home and there was a letter in my letterbox and it showed me a picture of what was actually happening. And that's when I first saw it and I thought, seriously?
Thank you.
Councillor Platten.
Thank you very much. And thank you for your deputation, Neil. I've got a couple of questions. The first one is around a letter prior to the one that led you to come here tonight. Were you aware that there was going to be a node or there was a streetscape project up until the letter that you received?
No.
That talked about the tender process?
I don't think anybody in Beachwood Apartments, which are all at the back here, I don't think any of us actually realised what was going on until we actually had that in a letterbox and it showed an actual diagram and a picture of a tree, shelter and seating. Prior to that, we had no idea. No.
Okay. In terms of the petition tonight, what were you led to believe that the outcomes from that petition would be from the council staff?
Well, I spoke to Nathan and I spoke to Keith, and I was hoping they would get back to me. Like they said they'd take it to council, they'd talk to council and come back to us. We heard nothing, absolutely nothing. So I'm not sure. What do you mean?
Well, did you think that coming tonight to do a petition, you'd be able to get it stopped, or?
Oh, absolutely. That's the whole reason why we're here. We want it stopped. Simple as that. We need it stopped. I've got grandchildren. I've got, and it's not just me. There's other apartments involved too, right? There's about probably 15 apartments involved, and the one next door to me has got a young baby. She doesn't want people sitting there looking into her apartment when she's got a young child. You know, when you go out to your balcony, I want to go out to my balcony, have a cup of tea, have a nice relaxing. People are staring right at me. The time we had that parklet put in front of us for a year, we couldn't sit out front for 3 to 4 months when it was summertime because we had people constantly looking at it. Now, you might say to yourself, people will sit there, they're not going to look here, but they do. They sit there and they look. As soon as you walk out the balcony, their eyes are on you straight away. As soon as you open your door, they're looking straight into my apartment and other people's apartments too. So, yes, we do want it to stop. We're not saying don't do a parklet, just do it somewhere else. You know what I mean? If you want tables and chairs, there's a great place over the Rotary Park. I know there's tables and chairs on one side, but there's no tables and chairs on the other side. You know, families are sitting on the grass over there in blankets. They need tables and chairs over there. They certainly do not need a table and chairs in front of 40 seats and tables that are already there.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad that you brought up Rotary Park. Go.
Sorry, I'm Margaret. I'm one of the owners of the apartments. We've talked about this with Neil and others, that the seating, that place you want to put a tree and everything, as we say, we don't want. But why don't you put seats along the beachfront with tables, because there's families there that have not got any tables or chairs, and people would like to actually eat and sit properly right on the waterfront. it's all there to cement. Why aren't you doing something like that with the money that can be saved? And also we were hoping maybe put sculptures up, because we've been just told that we have the best Christie Beach area from all that cycling from down under. Well, I think it still should be improved, but be improved in a practical way.
Thank you. Just got one more question.
Yep.
Out of the people that have signed your petition, how many of the apartments does that account for in the apartment? Yeah, and how many apartments are there? Sorry.
37.
So everyone signed it.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Councillor Wilkes.
Thank you. Just while you were talking, I wanted to alert all the councillors to the pictures that, as you can see in your little pictures, the second one is actually from underneath, how you can't see anything. And the bottom one is from the park. So there's no problem with those two. It's when you open it up, how clear and visible the property itself becomes at Neil's house and how you can see the lady standing on there. So just wanted to clear that up for our councillors. I wanted to ask you, Neil, what happened with that meeting with Keith and Nathan?
Well, we sat down with them and we thought it was a good meeting, especially through Keith. Yeah, he was like, basically looked like he was on our side, and he was going to get back to us and let us know how he was going to speak to people in the council and then get back to us. But we haven't heard nothing. There's been no email, no phone calls, no nothing.
No rounding back?
No.
Okay. There's another meeting as well. There was an email that was also put out with the photos, councillors. This was in respect to the meeting you had with Yolanda, and then you seem to have gone after that meeting to her manager, Adam, and I was wondering why you felt that you then stepped it up. And this was in 2020, sorry.
Yolanda, out the front of the bakery, in front of the parklet, standing in front of the parklet. We had a chat because prior to the parklet being there, we didn't know the parklet was going. We just came home one day and the parklet was there. So there was no letter in the post saying there was a parklet coming there. So I told her, well, not just told her, I explained to her how we all thought about it. We weren't happy about it. We wanted it removed. She then turned around and said, I'll have to speak to my boss, which was Adam, I think, right? So then I walked away, she walked away, right? And then she walked into the bakery. Now, in between the bakery, there's a walkway that goes through to our apartments, right? As I walk down there, I walk in and there she is hugging Baker and all the stuff. That's when I decided this wasn't right. I need to speak to her boss.
Okay.
And that's why I rang Adam.
And that's
Adam came down, and Adam was really nice. He was a nice guy. He came down. He just couldn't get out the contract. He said he just couldn't get out because the contract had already been signed. Now, that contract was signed. And everybody in Beach Point Apartments was never notified that the parklet was coming and that there was a contract being signed with the baker. So he couldn't get out of it. The only way he was trying to help me out was crossing the glass, roping out the parklet out every night so no one could actually use it. That didn't quite work because it was only a little rope and people went under the rope, over the rope or whatever. So,
okay.
But he did try, but yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Platten, you've got another question?
I do. From talking to residents during the petition that you've put together, did you ever get a sense that anyone had taken part in the Your Say campaign for community engagement of the beach road upgrades?
Sorry, what do you mean?
Sorry, so did any of the residents ever give you an insight into whether they'd put their opinion forward during the Your Say campaign, during the public consultation? Did anyone take part in the community consultation from the apartment?
Not that I'm aware of. Not that I'm aware of.
Thank you.
Yep.
I don't think there's any further questions. Thank you. Oh, Councillor Wilkes, did you have one more? Or, Neil, yourself, did you partake in the community engagement?
No, I didn't.
Why is that?
Because I think we were travelling at the time. I didn't actually see it.
Okay.
So it was only when we came home and we had this letter in our mailbox to say that the park was going ahead.
Did you contact council as soon as you got the letter?
I did straight away.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you.
Now I can say there's no further questions. So thank you very much for coming tonight. And as you know, that we've got a report coming to us later in the meeting. So you're very welcome to stay as when that debate happens. So feel free to stay into the chamber. Thank you.
No, I very much, Doc.
Our next deputation is from Julia Houghton, who's going to speak with us about Port Noarlunga Reef. And if she would like to make her way to the front, that would be terrific. Julia's also provided all elected members with a sort of one-page fact sheet that I think was distributed just as we arrived. So hopefully you have got that with you. And we did have a deputation at our last meeting, and I understand Julia's bringing some additional thoughts and items in relation to that. We've got 8 minutes. At the 6-minute mark, you'll hear a bell, which will tell you you've got 2 minutes left. So you're very welcome, Julia. The time is yours.
Good evening, Mayor and councillors. Thank you for allowing me to present this deputation as a concerned and responsible resident of the Untitled district. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today and pay my respect to their elders past and present, and also extend that respect to other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who may be present today. My name is Julia Wakefield Houghton. I have lived in both Port Noarlunga and Christie's Beach for the past 12 years. I'm a visual artist and writer, as well as a teacher of adults. I'm here today to exhort the council to pay more urgent attention to the task of protecting the Port Noarlunga Reef. This reef is the jewel in the crown of the Encounter Marine Sanctuary, but there is very little information at Port Noarlunga Beach about the unique nature of this reef and the importance of preserving its ecosystem. It forms a key part of the Great Southern Reef, which is an interconnected system of temperate reefs spanning over 8,000 kilometres around Australia's southern coastline, from Kalbarri in Western Australia to the New South Wales-Queensland state border. As a former scuba diver, a South Australian coastal ambassador, and a keen snorkeler, I have monitored the changes that have taken place on this reef since I moved here. And in my view, its marine flora and fauna urgently needs protection before it becomes seriously endangered. It already suffers considerable pressure from the residential and industrial runoff that is brought down by the Onkaparinga River and other waterways, despite the barriers that have been put in place. But the recreational activities that take place in and around the reef are also taking their toll. The council has had a considerable degree of authority, influence, and resources that can be utilised to increase public awareness of the damage that human activities can exert on the ecology of our reef system. Here are some examples of public lack of awareness that could be tackled. First of all, there is the tradition of jetty jumping. This is great Australian pastime, which has a long history, and there's even a children's book that celebrates it. During the school holidays especially, children and high school students ignore the signage at Port Noarlunga that forbids the public from jumping off the jetty. I understand from information supplied at last month's meeting that this offence incurs a fine that can be imposed by the council, but there is no mention of this in the signage, which is so unobtrusive that few people are likely to notice it. I'm also informed that the council would find it extremely hard to impose the fine on offenders. They would have to patrol the jetty daily, and as the practice is now such a popular tradition, hundreds of children would have to be reprimanded, but not fined, as most of them are under the age of 16. Even a telling off would not be an easy task, when it would be likely to anger most of the visitors to this region who consider jetty jumping to be a national sport. However, I do have some suggestions for ways that the council could gradually change public opinion. Firstly, the no jumping sign could be enlarged and made far more obvious, coupled with an explanation. Jumping onto divers and non-jumping swimmers is an obvious and serious hazard. There are also insurance implications in the event of any major accident. But just as urgent a consideration is the potential damage to marine life. The reef creatures receive enough disturbance from scuba divers and snorkelers without the added seismic impact of jumping. Secondly, there is a portable sign that is sometimes installed in front of the jetty, warning people about the times when dogs are to remain on a leash and reminding us that the beach is a dry zone at all times. Surely it would be possible to draw attention to the no jetty jumping rule by adding this to the list that this electronic sign displays. The second aspect of lack of public awareness is the tradition of fishing off the jetty. This is also a long-standing local tradition. There is signage on the jetty that forbids fishing from the end of the jetty, but this sign is often ignored. There's a notice halfway up the jetty that tells fishermen which species are permitted to be fished, but there is no signage that informs fishing enthusiasts and the public at large of the wealth of species that should not be caught, precisely because they are threatened with serious depletion. I have seen non-edible fish species being caught along the jetty and left on the wooden platform to expire or thrown back into the water with little interest expressed in ensuring their survival. Many visitors to the reef will be unlikely to consider that the fish they catch and allow to die may be one of a single breeding pair. A sign that describes these fish with pictures that display their beauty and astonishing colouring would demonstrate the importance of not only leaving these fish well alone, but caring for their well-being. As a visual artist and illustrator, I would be very happy to offer my services should you require a local artist to assist you with designing informative signs. My final concern that could be easily dealt with by the council signage is the issue of reef-friendly sunscreen. Not many people are aware that the sunscreen we wear on the beach can be deadly to marine life. The only websites that draw attention to this are based in America, and there's an example in the handout that I've given you. This council could lead an Australia-wide movement to increase public awareness of the necessity of wearing reef-friendly sunscreen. Friendly signage on the beach and on the jetty would be an instant way to start this movement. I'd also like to mention that I'm aware that there was an excellent deputation at last month's meeting by a 13-year-old that drew attention to the damage that is caused by people walking on the reef. When I first snorkeled in this area, I was one of the culprits. I damaged my wetsuit by sitting on the sharp shellfish that in those days covered the whole reef. Now there are large areas of reef that are bare of these shellfish. One of the reasons for their depletion might well be the numbers of walkers who frequent the reef in the summer months. I understand that the reef does not come under the council jurisdiction. Nevertheless, informative signs could advise visitors not to walk on the reef in order to preserve the plants and animals that live there. I hope and expect the council will seriously discuss my proposal and my suggested ways that they can implement their authority and influence. Increased awareness and understanding of the reef system will persuade the local community we have a precious and unique tourist attraction that urgently needs to be preserved and nurtured. Increasing public awareness will have a positive effect on tourism. Visitors to the region will not only be informed of the beauty and fragility of its ecology, but they will also be favourably impressed by the way our community is taking active responsibility for its welfare. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Platten.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Julia, for your great deputation. In your travels over the last few months, have you found any retailers in the area selling reef-safe sunscreen?
I have to confess that I haven't actually been to the local shop, the surf shop, to ask them. But as far as I know, it's not obviously promoted.
And would you say, in your opinion, it's council's responsibility to educate the community in helping our reef?
I definitely think that it is the council's responsibility, yes.
Thank you so much.
There seems to be no further questions, Julia. Thank you for your excellent deputation. And I know that elected members will pay attention to what you've given us tonight. So thank you very much. So we now move into the part of the agenda, items 8, 1, 2 and 3, which are reports from committee. Our first report is 8.1, the Audit and Risk Committee minutes of December the 7th, 2023, last year. Do I have a mover for these minutes? Councillor Yeomans?
Yes, I'll move them.
Do you wish to speak to the minutes?
Just a couple of things, if I can, just to perhaps by way of some couple of points into context in relation to the recommendations. There was the discussion about the risk, the terms of reference came up as the an agenda item for the Audit and Risk Committee, which you'll find in the minutes, which are attached to this report. And in relation to the terms of reference, what was discussed at the meeting and now will be included is a further dot point in relation to the functions of the Audit and Risk Committee. And one of the points that we agreed on that will be included in the next terms of reference is a discussion around, I'll get it here. Just bear with me for a second. That the council approved that the term relating to performing any other function determined by the council includes advice on matters of financial significance. That wasn't specifically articulated in the terms of reference. And I suppose a good example of that was at the last meeting when the ARC were providing some advice in relation to the long-term financial plan principles, where it was included in relation to some discussion on the capital investment, focus on that, and the terminology around growth. There was an explanation there. And something else that was discussed at the last ARC meeting, just for reference of the members, was the fact that in the work plan, which is like a calendar for the ARC, it was discussed or noted that the budget reviews for each quarter will be presented to the committee following the relevant council meeting, but this will still allow opportunity for the committee to provide feedback on each budget review to the finance team. What the ARC felt would be helpful for the chamber is if the budget reports were brought to the ARC prior to being presented to the chamber for consideration. And in light of that, the council administration kindly changed the meetings around a little bit, and we received an email on the 8th of January following the discussions at the last ARC meeting early in December about quarterly financial updates reports coming to the ARC prior to being presented to council. A special ARC meeting has been scheduled for February the 15th for the presentation of the quarterly financial update as discussed as of the 31st of December. So that's from the ARC's perspective, that was a bit of reassurance for the chamber that when the financial statements are coming for consideration of the chamber, it's actually been through the ARC. So just a couple of things that were
Thank you
discussing.
for getting that alignment together. Appreciate it. Councillor Pritchard, are you seconding?
I'm just seconding the motion and supporting what Paul has already detailed.
Thank you. Any questions? No. Any debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Next item, 8.2, the Australia Day Awards Committee meeting minutes. Do I have a mover, Councillor Eaton?
Yes, I'll certainly move it as written. I'll just make reference in respect to any group running an event that after 3 times getting the award that we move them to the Hall of Fame. It does actually give the opportunity for other organisations to be recognised for their efforts. It's not taking the congratulations for people that really perform and produce a great event, but it really is trying to share that recognition across all of our groups. Thank you. So I'll move as written.
Thank you. And do I have a seconder? Councillor Dew, do you wish to speak? Any questions, debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Item 8.3, the CEO Performance Management Committee minutes of the 16th of January. Councillor Eaton.
I'll move as written, nothing to say.
Thank you. Councillor Fisher.
I'll second them, Mayor.
Any questions, debate? All those in favour? Thank you very much. Now we move into the reports of officers. This is in the set of items 9 onwards. 9.1 is the report on the resignation of Councillor Kevin Rilett from Pimpala Ward. Councillor Themilotis.
I'll move and I might say a couple of words as well.
Off you go.
Thank you.
I'll start the clock.
Thank you very much. I must say I'm a little bit disappointed in Councillor Rilett. I did want to let him know that sitting next to me for 12 months, really, it wouldn't have been that bad. But on a serious note, I was very unsure about Councillor Rilett when I first met him. But that's not a negative thing. I'm usually unsure about most people. But Councillor Rilett and I were both council liaisons to the Onkaparinga concert band. And Councillor Rilett was involved in something that the mayor was involved in. Collectively, what we did is something that hasn't happened in a while, was get all the bands across our city together in the same room, having a conversation and actually meeting each other and working out the issues. And they've all actually created some relationships out of that and built stronger relationships with council. And Councillor Rilett was involved in that meeting. Councillor Rilett and I went out one Saturday night to a concert. We don't talk about it much, but it was the Onkaparinga concert band. We went and celebrated one of their events, and Councillor Rilett brought his son with him. And what I learned from that was the pride he has in his kids. He's very, very proud of his kids, and his interest in music and his knowledge of music, which I wasn't aware of at the time. Councillor Rilett, along with Councillor Eaton, we came together for the opening of the Serpentine cricket nets. And during that time, I had conversations with Councillor Rilett around the needs of sporting clubs and needs of issues in the area. And that's where I understood that Councillor Rilett really did have some strong connections to his community. Councillor Rilett also had many conversations with me about one of my favourite topics, meeting procedures. Thanks, Councillor Rilett. They were very interesting conversations. Councillor Rilett, you're not here tonight, but I'm sure you'll be one of the very few listeners that will watch back a council meeting and watch this. But I know my fellow elected members want to wish you the best of luck on your next journey. And I know that if things were very different, you would still be here with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Greaves. It's coming. There we go.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to second this motion. I would also like to say a few words, and maybe it was the fact that Councillor Rilett was sitting next to me for the last 12 months that might have had something to do with. No, I don't think so. I have to say I did enjoy my time sitting next to Kevin. It was very enlightening and amusing at times, but I think that as Councillor Themilotis has said, if circumstances had been different, we certainly would have enjoyed his ongoing contribution to this chamber, and I personally would like to wish him well in his future interstate. Thank you.
Thanks very much, councillors. Did anyone else wish to speak? Just to alert for the record that we are wishing him well, and I did have an opportunity to speak with him today, and he does send his very best to all of you. He particularly asked after Councillor Wilkes and for a safe delivery of her little one. So just wanted to put that on the record too. So all those in favour of this report, please. Thank you very much. The item is carried. Item 9.2. Southern Stars. So those of you following on the electronic copy, it's page 41. Councillor Wilkes.
Thank you. I would like to move a different recommendation to what is on the board.
Have you got some words for?
I do have some words. I'm going to read them out for clarity for my fellow elected members.
And for our minute taker?
And for our minute taker. So, Sue, note 1 will stay the same. Note that the council notes the investigations, and note 2 will stay the same, and then I'm going to alter 3, 4, and then there's 5, 6, and 7. So for my councillors, I have on the ball clip printed them out for you, and I've got my justification for them, but I'll start reading them out. So number 3 is note that the concept planning for the upgrade of the built facilities at Wilfred Taylor Reserve Regional Netball has commenced the stakeholder engagement, and this is to include all users of the Sooner facility. Perfect. Now we'll go to number 4. So you can just, I'm not going to be using any, so number 4, aligning with the direction of the Sport and Active Recreation Plan 2021. Sorry, Sue, I really appreciate this. To 25, 21. Council supports and endorses Southern Stars to negotiate terms to secure long-term functional use of the current Wilfred Taylor Reserve Regional Netball facility. Number 5, noting that Southern Stars are one of 3 Onkaparinga netball teams who do not share or have exclusive club rooms. Council coordinates meetings between Sooner you wouldn't believe it, I've lost my spot, between Sooner and Southern Stars, acknowledging that Southern Stars have expressed the desire, to Sooner at Council's direction to achieve an agreement that allows, and then the little 2 dots, point A, 6 of the 18 netball courts available on Monday and Thursday nights, as well as Saturday during the winter season, allowing the Southern Stars to increase participation and access in sport. B, potential access to club rooms, including toilets and amenities, for meetings, coaches induction nights, and various events. Thank you. And C, discuss the possibility of a shared use model for canteen facilities at the current Sooner site. Thank you so much for this, sir. I really appreciate it. Number 6, council scopes the design and retrofit of the existing large shed on site, noting that Southern Stars are willing to contribute to the cost of the project and or seek external funding from federal and state government means, fulfilling council's desire for projects on site to be 100% externally funded. Thank you. And last one. Council seeks to summarise the outcomes of the above recommendations, including the meeting outcomes and any formal arrangements entered during the meetings. So other users of the site can seek similar agreements for location clarity. If these recommendations are endorsed by council, these findings are to be presented to council at the March 2024 council meeting. Yes, please. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. All right. I am happy with that. I was reading as she was going, as Sue was going. Thank you, Sue. Appreciate it. Okay.
Do you wish to speak to the motion now?
Yes, please. I do. So I appreciate from the questions that we've just, well, the questions that Hannah fielded, Councillor Familio's suggestions of a sublease. I'd like to highlight that this does not instruct council to form a sublease. This is purely instructing council to have the conversation that they said they would have. I appreciate Councillor Dew's suggestion of the club going to a different space, but as you can see in the report, it has been explored to T-Send that there is no other space for them, regardless of the Hard Courts review actually saying we do have space for our clubs, but this report states that there's no space. Thank you, Councillor Bell, for suggesting that this is a mediation and that there has already been altercations between Sooner and Southern Stars, but they haven't even been in the same room. So we can't mediate something where a conversation hasn't happened. So let's get to the facts. This report recommends that Southern Stars stay at Sooner, and it's no shock. The Hard Courts report has outlined there's 59% of teams that either do not have enough court capacity or close to being full. So I just want to go through these recommendations, and I'd like to highlight why I have suggested all of these. Number one is the same as council's recommendation. Number two is the same. Number three, I wanted to say, I've noted that the concept planning for the upgrade with big facility at Wilfred Taylor Reserve, I believe, as it's written in the report, it's paramount that all clubs playing at Sooner are included and consulted in the development. It is important to note that although this development has been included in the report, it should not affect Southern Stars' request for immediate action. They would like 6 courts that are dedicated to them, as was offered to them by council. Number 4, the point where I've aligned it to the direction of the sport and recreation plan to negotiate long-term facilities. I've actually shown all elected members on your little highlighter sheet that I've given out with the booklet that the sport and recreation plan states, and noted in page 44 of the plan, that the council's role to increase participation in sport and active recreation and support associations and clubs to be safe, welcomed and well managed. This recommendation aligns to these principles. In addition to the SART, the Hard Courts review states, and I've got it highlighted here, that as a risk, not all clubs support the direction of the Hard Courts review, particularly those seeking additional courts, club rooms or fast-track resurfacing projects. Council's answer to this in mitigation says that further management of community expectations can be achieved by staff working closely with clubs to explore options that align with the review and ensure existing facilities are maximised. So that is what this report is suggesting, that we work closely with the club and the association as outlined in our Hard Courts review. Also in the risk and opportunity outlined in that Hard Courts review, it says the shared use of existing hard court venues is a risk. So how are we going to mitigate it? We're going to continue to work with clubs and associations to explore shared use and partnership opportunities to maximise the use of existing infrastructure. So then, again, we've said we will support clubs. And 43 of page 43 of this report in the middle, the council states retaining one of the largest clubs at Wilfred Taylor Reserve is consistent with the direction of the Hard Courts review, where the focus is on optimising the use of the facility to meet demands pressure from surrounding districts now into the future. So if we want to optimise the use, we have to be able to support these clubs. Number 5. Oh no, I'm running out of time. I've also highlighted in here, that we'll continue to monitor discussions between Sooner and Southern Stars to enable more favourable access arrangements and conditions of the use of Southern Stars and other clubs associations. So again, we've said we will monitor and we will advocate for more favourable access to arrangements. So we've also got the Harcourt's review again has 5 guiding principles. 2 of them is equity.
Time's up, Councillor. You will have an opportunity if the motion gets seconded to close the debate.
Okay.
Do I have a seconder?
I have so much in that. Thank you.
Councillor Dew, are you seconding the motion?
I had questions.
A question? Can we take question? No, not until it's seconded. Yeah, I think we need to get it seconded.
Okay, sure.
Councillor Platten,
Yes, I'm happy to second it.
do you wish to speak?
No, thank you.
Councillor Dewing, you got a question? Can you turn, Councillor Platten, would you mind turning your microphone on? Thank you. Councillor Dew?
I'm really conscious that there was an email, a letter sent from Sooner in the last 24 hours with a number of discrepancies to our report, like to the report that we've received.
Yes.
And I'm just wondering if administration would actually like to have the opportunity to tweak the report, but that we're going to move prior, like, you know, in the future. Would you prefer it on the record that it's actually accurate?
So you would like to ask?
Okay, so my question is, well, I guess from take a step back, do you agree that there's probably some indiscrepancies in the report potentially?
Is there someone willing to take that question?
Through the chair, yes, by way of update, we did receive a letter from Sooner. It was late or after close of business hours yesterday. I've reviewed that letter, and as I think the chamber can recognise, this matter's been ongoing for a number of months, and there's been multiple discussions with various parties. Look, I reviewed that in detail today, and in summary, I'm totally comfortable with our report and the accuracy. And I don't feel there's a need to amend our report.
Okay.
Thank you.
I wondered if other clubs have also raised concerns about access and use of Sooner.
Through the chair, no.
Okay. I've sort of had questions for Councillor Wills. Is that okay? I can't remember if that's okay or not.
It's really, I'm wondering if we can get all the questions out and then perhaps if they haven't been answered, Councillor Dew.
Yeah, I'm okay with them. So I just wanted to understand some words like monitoring, and there was another one that I kind of highlighted around functional use, and just wondered what the definition of that would be.
So just hold it a minute, Councillor. We're just thinking that if you're clear about what it is that you're looking for,
yeah.
I think make that clear on the record, and Councillor Wilkes can pick that up in her debate as well to help round out some of the questions.
Okay, so use it in my debate?
Yes.
Okay.
If you'd like to debate.
Yeah, sure.
Would you like to do that now?
No, not right now.
Okay. Other questions? Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I'm comfortable with some of those recommendations, but not all of them. And I think probably more.
So we'll put the timer up for debate. Off you go.
Yeah, so I'm against the motion as a complete setup. As I said, some of the first couple I support. I can see where some linkages have been made to the sports and recreation plan about using facilities within the council area for the council's interest, the best thing. I'm not sure it actually applies to this Sooner description. I find it really hard, and I'd ask a question of staff. Is it appropriate that we enter into what would be governance areas of a particular association to make decisions based on who they lease to, who becomes part of their association, and those sort of things? And as I said, I understand the inclusivity of involving user groups, and I'm all for that. But at the same time, you need to take into context who you're talking to and what your outcomes are. Forcing an association to bow to the wishes of a club that forms part of their association, I just think is overstretching the authority of a council. Full stop. Secondly, I don't see any problem with advocating for their future, but I think we set a dangerous precedent if we start involving ourselves at club level into association league. I mean, it's like South Adelaide coming to us and saying that the SANFL haven't scheduled enough football games at Panther Park or South Adelaide club rooms. We want you to do something about it because we're losing money on the gate or whatever. I'm going to use my minutes, but not too much more. I just think it's a dangerous precedent, and I ask elected members to consider that when we make any decisions. It's no reflection on Southern Stars, and I wish you all the best, but I don't want clubs lined up one after the other in various sporting codes saying, we want council to force this to happen, we want council to do that. No problems with advocating or being part of the process to negotiate to get the best out of our community facilities, but at the same time, I don't see it as a role of council with a number of those dot points.
Thanks, Councillor Fisher. Councillor Bell, have you got a question or debate?
Question to the staff, if I may. It's really about the governance one that Councillor Fisher just mentioned. Do we have a role in helping to negotiate contracts between associations and clubs?
No, Councillor Bell.
Okay. Do we recommend mediation?
Yes, we would recommend mediation.
So do we have people that we would normally recommend, or is it something that you would seek through SA Netball?
Yeah, through the chair, we'd seek that through the Netball SA as the sports peak body.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Councillor Wilkes, have you got a question?
Yes, I do. Just in regards to Councillor Bell's question on whether or not it's our space, can you give me some commentary around when council supported Happy Valley Tennis Club taking them off the lease so they could have a separate lease arrangement?
Through the chair, I can't comment on that. I wasn't in the role at that point in time.
Okay.
So we might take that one on notice.
Can we take that one on notice?
Yep.
And can I get some commentary around this assistance
okay?
and support council gave to Happy Valley Tennis?
So there needs to be questions, Councillor.
Awesome. Cool. I have another one. Were you in the role when Happy Valley's Viking Netball Club was assisted for them to be part of the multi-user sporting facility there?
Through the chair, I've been involved in discussions with the Valley Vikings, but I'm not aware of council support being provided for that to happen.
So what's your role in that and the Happy Valley Vikings Netball Club joining the multi-user sporting facility?
So let's just try and keep it on the item that we've got in front of us. I know that I know you're looking for precedents. I understand that, but I want to make sure that we are also keeping clear that we're enabling staff to do their jobs as well. So let's think about not the role, but what is council's responsibility in those things, or try and put your questions in a way that deals with the system and the institution or individual staff.
Okay, so how does council see their role in assisting a club to deal with negotiations?
Through the chair, if I can just give a brief update on where we're at with this process.
I prefer if you just said what council's role is.
Well, we don't have a role in.
I'm just asking Nick, just answer the question that you intended to answer, which was about just the background that you were going to give a little quick update.
Yeah, just a very quick update. And with regards to some information in the members' folders that was received recently, we have issued a draft lease to Sooner, noting that Southern United Netball Association is the association which supports the competition across our region. So 14 clubs play in that competition. So it's a large regional competition and Southern Stars is part of that. We've received feedback from Sooner on that draft lease and we've provided a preliminary response in writing to that today. So that process is well in train. We've also received correspondence from Sooner raising some concerns that, or emphasising firstly that Sooner represent 14 clubs and the role of the association is to coordinate a competition that supports those 14 clubs together with access to courts and also to their facilities. And Sooner does have concern that through this process, when they are an association, that council's taking a position where it's advocating for the needs of one club. And that's where these things do get challenging. So we note those concerns of Sooner and we also note the aspirations of the Southern Stars Netball Club and congratulations and well done with the deputation because it's really clear what the club aspire to. In our discussions about the Sooner lease, we initially moved to the idea of some sub-tenure arrangements to facilitate some of the outcomes that are being sought by the Southern Stars Netball Club. But upon reflection, further consideration, it isn't the role of council to try to facilitate those outcomes for a particular club through a lease negotiation, through a contract within an association. I think Councillor Fisher's example of the South Adelaide Football Club is a relevant one. So the process where we're at is we have a lease in front of Sooner. We're working towards finalising that and continuing the negotiations. And we've had a 50-year relationship with Sooner as a council and with the Wilfred Taylor Regional Netball Facility. In the same way that that facility has been home to the Southern Stars Netball Club for 50 years. So as netball's grown, that facility's grown. It's gone from 12 courts to 18 courts to meet demand. And that facility needs to grow and change to meet the demands of netball and multiple clubs and multiple associations in the future. And so the challenges that Southern Stars are facing at Sooner at the moment is a reflection of the limitation in the facilities themselves. We've upgraded the courts. Stage 2 is to do the buildings. And as we've said in this report, as tabled and as printed before the proposed amendment, we've commenced that concept planning stage. Southern Stars will have an opportunity to be involved in that process, as will the other clubs and stakeholders, because our focus is on upgrading those facilities to meet the needs of netball, the association and multiple clubs into the future. So that is our focus on working towards those new facilities. And we're not advocating for one association or one club over the other, but I can't emphasise enough that the shortcomings and the challenges being faced at Sooner or at the Wilfred Taylor Regional Netball Facility as a result of the limitation in the facilities themselves. So our recommendation in this report, how challenging it's been, I know to Hannah and the club, is that we don't support a move. It's not a financially sensible or sustainable decision. We need to consolidate use in our regional facilities, and therefore our focus is on working together and to improve those facilities. Coming back to the lease arrangements, really firm that it isn't council's role to advocate for one club in the context of a lease negotiation with an association. That situation is problematic. So that's where we sit today.
Thank you. Councillor Dew.
I wondered
a question or debate?
Question. Two questions. When Sooner were made aware by council that Stars were interested in the opportunity to be sort of based there more formally. So council, was it the September meeting when Sooner were first made aware that that was the case?
Yes, through the chair, in our role as council officers, we've done our very best to communicate Southern Stars requirements through to Sooner.
Yeah.
Timing, I think Councillor.
Yeah, back in September, we went to their, these discussions have been ongoing and we have an ongoing relationship with Sawyer, their operations manager. So we've made it clear that, what our understanding of Southern Stars requirements are. And we also attended the Sawyer board meeting in December and emphasised these things.
Okay.
One thing with respect to the lease, we put a lot of effort into the. Okay, thank you. Thanks for.
So the question. There are questions. I'm still formulating my debate. The initial scoping for Stars, obviously they had sort of an idea of what they were after. But I'm interested as to why we had, from my perspective, a narrow scope in terms of facilities and spaces that we evaluated. We only looked at 6 spaces, and across Catholic education, Department for Education, like so public, private, there's definitely more courts and more spaces in the south. Now I know, even though there's no catchment formally in netball, Southern Stars obviously have stated where their families are from, but why we didn't consider more spaces.
So it's really around the scope.
What informed the scope?
What informed the scope of that assessment?
Yeah.
Yep. Can someone answer that? What informed the scope of the assessment?
Through the chair, we did look at 10 sites.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, there was a spatial scope there was influenced by the number of courts Sooner were looking for. So it was pretty broad, and then we also did have discussions with Cardine College, as Hannah mentioned it always. So with Rilett East College, so it was pretty extensive and expansive.
Yeah, because Southern Vale's like there's a whole range. Yeah, anyway, that's okay. And probably just in terms of precedents, but I think that's probably potentially already been covered around. Is this a precedence that we'd then be setting if we went down this path?
So from a policy point of view, is there anything specific you've got in mind?
What I've got in mind is us playing a role of negotiating and supporting the organisations to have an agreement together.
Yeah, through the chair, it is unique because, again, we're talking about an association. So when you look at associations across the region, like we've got the Southern Football League, we've got Sooner and so forth. So relationships or arrangements with associations are quite different, so it would be unique.
And I just want to make clear in my mind, so because Stars were very clear in giving examples of multi-use facilities, where we may have a role in that, because I assume, versus an association, do we see that that's different, and why?
Yeah, good question through the chair. Multi-use sports facilities are generally multiple, like very different sports at one site. So cricket, footy, lawn bowls, netball, tennis. So it is one multi-use sports facility supporting different sports. This is one regional facility with an association that supports a competition from multiple clubs. So one association, 14 clubs. So it is very different. It is unique.
Thank you. Councillor Pritchard.
Councillor Dew just stole one of my questions, which was, is this considered a multi-use sports facility? And if it was, would that change any of our arrangements around sublease requirements?
So that's a fictional question. As lovely as it is to imagine that,
I'll go with
you find something more time relevant.
That's all right. With regards to the facilities scoping, I know that the proposal at the moment talks about retrofitting of the existing large shed. Is that part of the considerations of the current facility scoping? And do we have any more information on what that might be? Is that more storage? Is that another set of toilets? Do we know anything about what that potentially could be turned into?
So a prophetic question this time, but I think we can allow it. It's relevant.
Through the chair, really, I would take that on notice that the scope of the project's been led by the major projects team, but I think it's fair to say that shed at the facility could potentially, be rethought to deliver some better outcomes.
Councillor Themilotis.
Yeah, just a couple of questions. So just to clarify with me, who owns the facility at the Wilfred Taylor Reserve, the regional netball facility? Who owns that?
Oh, it's council owned on community
Council.
land.
Thank you. And to date, has any meeting taken place with all the interested parties around need and usage? Future need, future usage?
Not between council, Sooner and the Southern Stars, no.
And other groups that are interested? Has not. Okay. Does this motion commit council to any funding?
Through the chair, no.
Okay. When council originally put 50% funding towards the 18 courts, why did we do that? Like, why did we put funding towards? What was the outcome that council thought they would get by putting that funding to ensure the 18 courts?
Oh, through the chair in a general sense, and there's
Yeah.
recognised community needs, so contributing to that outcome.
Okay, for community need. And stage 2 that you talk about, or that you have mentioned, is there any funding committed to stage 2? And if there is, when will that commence?
There's $15,000 for concept design in the current financial year, but nothing committed beyond that.
Councillor Platten, you can ask questions, but you can't debate.
I have a question.
Good, off you go.
All right, so any opportunity to talk about my beloved Port Noarlunga, and I'm just struggling, I just want to ask again, I'm struggling to understand why a multi-use sporting club, apart from the sports, is different to the way Sooner is run and having different teams all playing on the same field or court. I'm not a sports person, but would we help a club, a cricket club or a netball club or whatever, in a multi-use sporting facility, have conversations with the overarching body in that scenario?
So that also is a little bit fictitious.
Do we help?
Do we? Thank you. Lovely. Reframe, beautifully done.
Through the chair, I think with respect to the first part, I think the best example is the Southern Football League. So we've got a Southern Football League, and by memory is about 12 clubs. And each of those clubs have, got a home at one of our multi-use sports facilities. So there's one association with 12 different sites. With respect to netball and Sooner, it's one association and one site. One association, one site, 14 clubs. So the way it's structured is quite different. That's your second part. When it comes to a multi-use sports facility, do we help a particular club have discussions with its committees? Generally not, because at a multi-use sports facility, each of the users of that size represented on the head committee. So again, it's different governance and management structures. So that's why, in response to some of the other questions, this is unique, it's different, and therefore why having a direct involvement in lease negotiations with an association with one club's needs or interests or aspirations being focused is a very different situation.
Question, Councillor Fisher?
Yeah, I know the answer, but I just want to share it. So if you had to describe Winifred Trailer Reserve as far as sporting facilities go, do you know how many there are? Who they are?
Oh yeah, through the chair. I mean, Wilfred Taylor Reserve is a regional level facility, and so I think off the top of my head, I think there's about 8 different sports represented: basketball, soccer, netball, rugby union, and the list goes on.
Then my question that joins that is basically, are all the clubs having the same issues as far as facilities being their problem in that particular group?
Oh, through the chair, I think facility pressures are being experienced citywide. We've got 300 clubs, 15 multi-use sites, so it's citywide. And that's why shared use is paramount.
Councillor Themilotis, a question or debate?
I'm going to go for some debate.
Your time starts now.
Thank you very much. Elected members, we've heard from council staff that this is our facility, so we have a bit of skin in the game here. And the reason why the previous chamber put that 50% funding towards getting those 18 courts was to exactly that, address need. There was a need across our city from multiple clubs, and they don't seem to be getting the usage that they need out of that facility. For me, there seems to be a real breakdown in communication. And I agree to a point with what Councillor Fisher says, in that there's elements I really like about this motion and there's elements I'm not too sure about. But I think what Councillor Wilkes is trying to do is say, essentially, look, let's just stop the crap. Here it is, have it, and stop mucking around, because there is that breakdown of communication. So she's just saying, here it is, and it's all its glory, and let's not muck around with this. I've had enough. I can understand the frustration. But what staff have just told us is no real meeting has taken place with all those interested parties, and they really need to get around the table and have that conversation around future need, future usage. What we have heard today, and it needs to be made clear to clubs, that there's 15,000 set aside for some concepts. They'll have some discussions with the clubs that are interested and draw up some concepts. But concepts can sit there for years and years and years. This doesn't guarantee you a shed, a storage, a toilet, a box, a nothing. It guarantees you a nothing. So that's why I feel like there's two stages to this. And the first stage is that really urgent and important meeting around getting all those interested parties around that table talking about future need, future usage, establishing clearly what that is. And this is what Councillor Wilkes is trying to say, is say, here, have it. I'm sick of it. Here it is in all of its glory. This is the need for this particular club. There are other interested clubs too. So I would like that meeting to sort of happen first. And I know there's a lot of interested parties, there's interested local MPs as well in that meeting. And I think council can help facilitate that meeting, and council can help guide that meeting and guide those groups and bring those groups together, because communicating through email is not a good way for communication. Nothing's going to be achieved through that. And what's happening currently is not working. And again, it's our facilities. And the reason why we put that funding in was to make sure all these clubs that don't have access and having issues, they have this facility to use. And we're hearing now 18 courts not all being utilised. That's really unfair to some of my clubs who are on really bad courts, not going to be getting funding in millions of years, and they're looking at the Sooner courts thinking this is bloody fantastic. That's across our board, not just in my ward. So elected members, I don't like the wording, but I know what Councillor Wilkes is trying to do. I absolutely know what Councillor Wilkes is trying to do. The initial stage is getting all those groups together and having that conversation and being really frank from a council stage where we're actually at with this funding or lack of funding, but it's probably going to become an advocacy item, and it's going to take years and years of pushing to make things happen there, and then getting all those key groups around the table. I feel like there's a slight risk of putting this out here in full glory, because Sooner isn't here to be part of the conversation, and they may take this the wrong way. I only suggest that because this letter was 5 pages long. There's a lot into it. So I know what Councillor Wilkes is trying to do. I understand the frustration. You know what? I'm going to support it because I know what she's trying to do, but I do share a number of risks.
Thanks, Councillor Finlay. Councillor Greaves.
Yes, thank you, Mayor.
Question, debate?
I'm actually going to debate.
Off you go.
Thank you. I think there's been a lot of questions and I think a lot of clarification from my perspective about where we are and what council's role is and isn't in this whole issue. And all due respect to Councillor Wilkes, I understand what she is trying to achieve by putting it all out there, as you say, but there are parties in this room who have not had the opportunity to respond to this, and council is in the middle of contract negotiations with its head lessee. You know, that is also out there at the moment. I absolutely respect Southern Stars and where they're coming from and what their future aspirations are for their club, and what they would like to achieve in terms of court access and fundraising. And I can only imagine that it would be frustrating not being able to run a proper canteen and actually have access to the club room facilities for training, etc. But the reality is council, and I think Councillor Fisher touched on it, was that, you know, our role as council is to provide facilities, but we are also responsible with SUNA for actually negotiating a lease around that. And then as an association, it is their responsibility to ensure that all of their 14 clubs have access, equal access, whatever that looks like. You're right, Councillor Familiotis, I think there is a breakdown in communication here, and SUNA are not here to respond, so I'm not going to try and figure out what's happening. But the reality is it's not our role to force, which I feel this is forcing a negotiation. That should happen, and the association should be responsible for responding to its own clubs and actually providing, you know, us all having that conversation or sitting down and actually, you know, I guess, responding not just through emails, but having an actual conversation about what they want and need and what their future aspirations are. I just don't believe that this is the way to achieve it. It is certainly putting it all out there. This is what Southern Stars have expressed to us and have expressed over a number of months. But our responsibility as council is to negotiate in good faith with SUNA, who then have the overarching responsibility to ensure their association works. And this is not the way that I think it can be achieved.
Thank you. Councillor Pritchard.
Just a quick debate. I mean, I'm just quite conscious of SUNA being referred to as an association, as they obviously are, but in this context, I feel like they're the landowner or they're the leasee, which I think it's a separate role, association, and then the facility manager. And in this case, I don't think it's 14 clubs that we're talking about. We're talking about the ones that use the facility as their home base, which from my understanding is 2 main clubs in Ladybirds and Southern Stars and a couple of social clubs. So from a facilities point of view, I think this is where we're looking at this multi-user sports facility type arrangement and trying to make sure that the sublease people, the people that use this as their home base, are trying to maximise their facility usage. So I think this recommendation supports that more than worrying about the association component. It's around that facility model. Shared canteen access seems to be something that's done at multiple sites all over the city. So I think that that's achievable. Having some additional storage seems achievable. I think the court allocation is a minor issue because it does seem like there's plenty of courts available. And giving people access to a club room so they can have meetings seems appropriate. So in my view, some of these things are not, you know, and it's a shame that it's coming to council to have these discussions around the facility. But in terms of what's being asked for, it seems something that we should be able to accommodate without setting a precedence, because I think it's only really a couple of clubs that we're talking about, not an association of 14. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Dew.
Just a couple, I'm going to debate, please.
Okay,
just a couple of points. I appreciate what Councillor Pritchard just said, but I do feel that SUNA wouldn't be the leasee if it wasn't to administer the association. So I don't think you can separate, this is my perspective, separate the two, because that's their main function and role. I don't think this is at all about Southern Stars, in my perspective. Clearly they're here in the best interest of their club. But I feel like our role of the chamber is to actually be strategic and big picture, and really thinking more broadly around the, I guess, landscape for our clubs and how we enable all clubs going forward. And it concerns me a little bit that we would back a club in without actually this is to me hosting a conversation, coordinating a conversation on behalf of one club when there's a myriad of clubs that would love our advocacy as well. I think one of the biggest challenges is what we normalise in women's sport. I think that female sport has often been on the back burner. We know that historically. And so it's quite normalised in our society for cricket, football and tennis to all have club rooms. And I'm surprised actually that, and clearly Stars know their operations and their aspirations better than I do, but I'm surprised that they feel that an association of being based there is actually sustainable and actually helping them establish a foundation going forward, because to me, it's like a football club, your home ground, you go back there after you celebrate your wins and your losses. And I don't know if an association would meet that need, particularly in the long term. And we talk in the report about additional works that will take place, but I guess with that comes more interest in the site, and with that comes then greater shared use. And having club rooms there that are shared when you train and play generally on the same night, I just don't see how that could meet the needs of the club. But again, it's not my call. I feel like we could have done better in terms of trying to find a solution across our other sites or across, the myriad and plethora of other, well, I shouldn't say plethora, we're not over resource in terms of netball clubs, netball spaces, but there are definitely more sites that we could have investigated, I think. I guess for me, I feel really uncomfortable about the relationship between us as the organisation and Sooner and us and Stars. I feel like there maybe is potential damage that's occurred across all of that, and I don't feel that we're in a position to tell another governing body what to do.
Thank you. Councillor Brooks to close debate. Oh, sorry, Councillor Yeomans, do you want to ask a question or debate?
Just a question, then I'll just have a quick debate.
Sure, go ahead.
Just to, Nick, if I can. Number 4 of the original recommendations to talk about upgrading the facilities. I'm just wondering whether you would see that as an opportunity once some investments made in those facilities to address the concerns that we heard about this evening in the deputation from the Southern Stars in relation to the, I suppose, fundraising opportunities and storage shed and access to club rooms, that sort of thing. If they're going to be a bit expanded, do you see that as an opportunity to address those sorts of things with number 4?
Yes, I think that the best design processes are where shared use and management and governance is considered as part of the design process.
Yeah, and look, if I just a quick debate, if I can.
Go ahead.
I'm not a netball person, trying to get my head over all this. Number 3 talks about point 3. Sorry, talks about the Wilfred Taylor. Sorry, the original number 3 as note that maintaining the Wilfred Taylor Reserve Regional Netball Facility as the home for Southern Stars Netball Club is considered appropriate. That to me is what I've heard tonight, is that's not how they feel it's a home, it's just where they're playing and they just want a bit more ownership there. I'm concerned about the specifics in relation to what's been presented to us, and I appreciate the passion and the intent. But to me, it's almost like we've got to a point the Chamber's trying to broker a deal here, because the administration might be saying, well, this actually isn't our role. Southern Stars are coming to elected members and saying, well, help us. We're hearing that there's not much communication going on between the leasee and that club. So what do we do? So we're sort of getting to a point now where this is almost like an impasse. So without sort of telling administration what to do, I would really like to see a recommendation that encourages, as part of the discussion about the new draft lease, the Chamber encourages the council to facilitate, manage, coordinate, whatever term you want to use, so we can get these clubs sitting down so we can actually move forward, which actually addresses this number 3, where we've got, where you see it's appropriate as the home for this particular club. And I think we should be doing something to make them feel as if it is their home. That's all.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Wilkes, close debate. Time starts now.
Excellent, so I think that's great.
Councillor Yeomans, we do need to stand up and say this is the home for Southern Stars. The way I've crafted this motion is purely around supporting the club to be able to have a conversation. The words of enforcing or facilitating aren't there. It's more about supporting. Someone has to be the leader in the space. Negotiations need to happen, and community looks for leadership. and we as the council are the owner of this facility. So it would be great to see some leadership. If it is just the coordination of a meeting between Southern Stars and Sooner, I think that's in the best interest of us as the owners. We've done it before. Happy Valley Tennis Club, taking them off the lease so they could separate lease with council, and the Happy Valley Vikings Netball, we assist them to be part of the multi-user sporting facility. We own the site and it's in our best interest for the club to assist them. We've actually want to highlight what council's role is, and we've talked tonight about the difference between a multi-user sporting facility and the Netball Association themselves. We wanted to create a difference between them, so we came up with the Hard Courts Review, and the Hard Courts Review was endorsed by this council in June last year, and it's got 5 guiding principles in it, and supporting the club to have a conversation with the association is written in 3 of the 5 guiding principles. 1, equity and access. 3, collaboration and partnership, and 5, the community level focus, fitness for purpose. I encourage you, I put them on your desk to read them and see that this is something that we actually endorse, that we would support clubs if they needed it. We're not forcing, we're not making Sooner have or do anything for the club. I'm simply trying to assist Southern Stars to get in the room with Sooner so they can sit down and have a mature conversation. It hasn't happened. We stood here in November, and we had the conversation in this very chamber about how council would facilitate this meeting. They used the word facilitate, and it still hasn't happened. So at what point do we just wash our hands of it and do nothing? Well, our reviews say that we can't, that we should support the clubs. And that's why I think it's really important that we sort of look at what's gone wrong here. I think there's been promises that's been broken. I think leadership has not been sought by or seen by anyone. And I reckon if these recommendations are approved by our council, we will have movement in this area. We'll have discussions. Southern Stars could possibly get some security. We'll have new, fresh ideas that come to Sooner, which Nick said was relevant because Sooner's just been upgraded and they've now got 18 courts. So we need to do something with that facility to increase participation there. But most importantly, it aligns to our SARP and our Hard Court Review. So I really think someone has to be the leader in the space. I think council supporting a conversation between the clubs and Sooner is in our best interest. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm now going to put the motion. All those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those against? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The motion is carried. And I'm just looking at the time. We normally have a break at 8:30. We're over that time. Councillor Wilkes, did you wish to? No, thank you. I'm recommending that we have a 10-minute break. Is someone willing to move that? Councillor Themilotis, seconded Councillor Eaton. All those in favour? All right, we'll be back here at 5:02 into the chamber. 9. So we're up to item 9.3, the submission to on local government participation and elections review. We will know that this has been a topic close to our heart in this chamber. Do I have a mover? Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I would like to move, and I'd like to start with a question, if I may, before I debate. Go ahead.
Are you moving A or B? Sorry.
I beg your pardon. Yes, I'd like to move A. Thank you. That council endorses the City of Onkaparinga's submission on local government participation and election review attachment 1 to the agenda report for forwarding to the Office of Local Government, that is the state government, and the Local Government Association.
Thank you. And you had a question?
I have well, I'd like to start by indulging the chamber and express my congratulations to Desmond Morris and to Dale Sutton for their successful nomination to the Office of Local Government Working Group, as stated in the discussion below the agenda item. So congratulations. Is Dale here? No, I didn't think so. I didn't think I saw him. And my question is actually to you, Desma, if I may. Can you please provide us a little bit of an explanation and process that led to the successful nomination and the purpose and unique role you hope to and expect to play in the review?
Thank you, Councillor Bell and members. The nomination process was an expression of interest that was put out to all councils. I expressed my interest based on my experiences of the last election, but also my 20 years in local government in both the largest metropolitan council, but very small regional councils and mid-sized councils as well. So I think there's a lot of perspective across my experience that I could bring to the table. So we have had our first introductory meeting with the Office of Local Government. There's myself, a manager from Tidri Gully and another manager from the District Council of Kimber, so a broad range. We'll be having another meeting in late January, early February, which will discuss the submissions that have been received from councils, elected members and the public. And then late March, we'll be meeting again to focus on summarising all the submissions. And then late April, early May, focusing on the draft legislation that will be going to the Parliament. So unique opportunity. I'm really pleased to be part of it.
Well done. Congratulations. So yes, I'd like to start debate if I may. Yes. As mentioned, obviously I support motion part A in full. And I'd like to thank and acknowledge the comprehensive work that's gone in to the all of these documents, and it's followed with the discussion and attachments. The collaborative work that's gone in is, it is extensive. It's important to note that this, of course, submission is Council's response to the local government participation and election review. Following particularly the elected member session that we had on the 7th of December. And this document, together with also Council's 18th of July endorsed submission to the Local Government Association, which was then titled The Next Stage of Local Government Reform, Preserving a Democratic Local Government Sector in South Australia. And if supported by the Chamber, it will obviously be required to be forwarded, or both of them will be required to be forwarded to both the Office of Local Government and Local Government Association by the 2nd of February, I understand. So it is crucial that we get that done as soon as possible. As the largest council in South Australia, we of course have a responsibility and an obligation to ensure we take part in this review. Attachment 1, beg your pardon, it's important that we provide informed, constructive feedback to the Minister in what is also a historical review of the future of local government and local government elections. Attachment 1 accurately represents the collaborative views of Council, I believe, and the Chamber, provides feedback and suggestions and ideas that have been workshopped by us, and is clearly addressing the review topics, in my opinion, on how to improve people's engagement and participation with their council, how to encourage greater numbers and more diverse candidates, how we can increase voter turnout, and how we can make sure that council elections are run efficiently with the highest level of integrity. And importantly, it also provides detailed information on our experience and our responses to disruptions, sadly, that during the local government elections in 2022, and also on subsequent meetings that we held in January 2023. I'm pleased and feel very proud and confident that we are doing everything in our power to help provide all of us the tools to ensure we have a future, we and future elected members have the best chance of representing and making the best decisions on behalf of the broader community. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Councillor Eaton.
I'll second. I've got nothing to add.
Any further questions? Debate? Councillor Bell, do you wish to close debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? All those against? The motion is carried. Item 9.4. We have the bushfire preparations. Councillor
what I'd like to say is that it clearly indicates a tremendous amount of work that actually has been done in the city of Onkaparinga, bearing in mind the Cherry Gardens fires 3 years ago. So a lot of work has been done there. When I look at our crisis management arrangements, I had been having some discussions about staff considering putting in for a grant to develop a community emergency management plan, similar to what we did, the contract I did for Port Adelaide Infield Council a few years ago. But when I look at our crisis management arrangements, most of that is there. One area that I do see that we need to do a lot more work on is in respect to our preparation, prevention and preparedness phase. And what I would like us to actually do is to run a number of community engagements, seminars, for want of better words, involving hazard leaders as well as the control agencies in respect to hazards that are relevant to that particular area. We've done a lot in respect to bushfire. You know, we've hit Kangaroo, we've hit Cherry Gardens and those areas, but we have a lot of risks sitting around in our general suburban areas as well. 10 years ago, I actually was the team leader with Department of Environment, managing their hazard management team, and we did flood risk assessments across the state. And part of those risk assessments involved engaging with those emergency management zones that identified flood as a major risk. As the hazard leader, we actually presented at those and gave them the information. And then similarly, 6 years ago, when I was doing a contract with Port Adelaide Infield to develop their community management plan, we did it from an all hazards approach. So we run a range of information sessions involving both the control agencies and the hazard leaders in respect to risks across the city of Port Adelaide, and they will differ. So I'd like to actually have at some stage some discussions with staff over the possibility of doing this. It would enable CFS, SES to present, and it might help them on their current recruiting drives because they're suffering from not getting the number of volunteers that they need. And similarly, it might even help SAPOL in respect to its current recruiting drive, but they would talk about the relevant hazards that they've got. So look, I certainly would like to commend staff on the comprehensive report and certainly our crisis management arrangements. One thing we need to get out there into the community though is they've got to understand that in respect to council response to major incidents, you know, we're not going to be there 2 hours afterwards. And the storm events in November of 22 clearly indicated the amount of time that it takes us to actually get back and get into that recovery phase. So it's really important that we educate the community. And those discussions involve MFS, talking about normal home fire safety in suburban areas. But thank you.
Thank you. And I didn't unfortunately do what I should have done, which was to check with staff if they had any updates for us. That's apologies for that. Councillor Pritchard.
I would like to second the motion. And yeah, just quickly, it's good to see that we've still got just over $1.3 million still to spend in the next 12 months on further bushfire preparation. There was a bit of a worry the other day when I went past a remote controlled mower that was on fire on the Victor Harbour Road, and I quickly texted Director Richardson to see if it was ours, and luckily it wasn't. It was the Department of Transport's mower. Councillor Greaves may have been there on a fire truck. I've just got one question. Is there a cooperation between the council and national parks with regards to weed removal? The context is around Old Noarlunga. We get lots of inquiries about the national park there and what we can do to try and get into those olives. So if there's anything that we could be doing in that space, that'd be great.
Thank you.
Through the chair, yes, there is at staff level a lot of discussion between us and national parks and DW as a whole. Really, we are slightly limited by the actions you can take on your own land. So we've put a lot of effort into removing olives and other woody weeds on council land, but we can't really influence what DW do on their land.
Can I please add to that? The Onkaparinga Park as well is a real problem, and we've written and the Mayor have written to to the minister and to the chief executive. But the parks really lack funding in the management, and we do a pretty good job with regarding weed management along our verges and beyond, and the residential areas abutting the park. But we do a lot of advocacy, and yet it's probably not where we want it to be as yet, but we continue to advocate. It's always an ongoing issue regarding weed management, and also residents understanding their own responsibility around weed management on their property.
Thank you, Councillor Yeomans. Did you have a question or debate?
Yeah, they're probably a bit operational, but on page 108, there's it talks about the role of the mayor and elected members, and it talks about sort of enabling the administration to the council administration enabled and resourced to prevent, prepare and respond to recover from emergencies, etc. Thinking strategically in relation to emergency management and communicating with the community. So given that's the role of the mayor and elected members, I guess my question is what sort of training is provided to the mayor and elected members so we can actually facilitate that responsibility?
Through the chair, good question. We don't really have a program as such to give you. The intent is to take you guys through an elected member workshop in the next little while about some tactical evacuation type responses. So perhaps we can develop that into more of a rounded training for you guys in what to do during emergencies.
I can just add a little bit to that, Councillor Yeomans. The Local Government Association have got some guidelines. So for when there has been training for mayors, generally about the mayoral role, that's been included in that, and it's really been primarily around our role in the communications of these issues, rather than heaven help us if you had me helping out on a fire. But I could probably be on radio to say, leave your homes if it's time to leave now. So primarily it's a communication activity at that point, and it is included. The Local Government Association do have some guidelines and do provide some advice to presiding members and mayors.
Just one more question if I can. On page 123, talks about sort of, I suppose, power outages. I'm just wondering whether the council has portable generators available to maintain electricity supply for any emergency relief centres that we might have to activate if there was an emergency.
Through the chair, not currently. We have a generator here at Noarlunga office, which will keep some of our IT gear running. But for the emergency relief or recovery centres, we don't. There are some community disaster resilience groups who are currently looking into that. They have some really good ideas about what they would need in order to support an emergency relief centre, and they're again looking for some grant funding to facilitate that.
Councillor Bell?
Just a quick question. I'm just interested actually in Scorcher Paringa. Can you tell me a bit more about that, please?
Yes.
Fun day out.
Through the chair, it was just a desktop exercise for our crisis management team. So a bushfire scenario of increasing complexity. So we generally, thankfully don't have a lot of real-time emergencies to deal with. So it was just a training opportunity for staff to feel a bit comfortable with our arrangements and plans. So we just had a day where we stepped through a scenario around bushfires.
And another question? Yes.
Question. Do you do this annually or planning to do this annually?
Yes, that's the plan.
And do you do more on the ground stuff or planning that at all? A bit like fire drills?
Oh, yes, there's the work health safety area of council do manage a program where every council site does at least 2 emergency evacuations per year. So that's probably the practical application of workplace safety.
Okay, great to hear. Thanks.
And also our sites like community centres and libraries, for instance, have extra support. And the other thing I'll just add, as you heard from Julia Grant, we did write to the Minister, the Deputy Premier, to the Minister for Environment. And then we also had an opportunity, myself and the CEO caught up with her just a few days before Christmas, and we did talk directly to her about woody weeds, and a couple of her senior staff joined us that day. For those, the interface between, if you like, the national parks and our spaces, and really to advocate on behalf of our constituents here in the city, often who are really deeply worried about the potential for fire coming through the gorge, for instance, into our precious wine region. And so I think it was a very useful conversation to be able to have face to face, and was well received. So I think we can, she certainly took it on board to have a joint meeting with her staff and ours for the next steps to do something about that. I'll put the motion. There'll be no further questions. All those in favour? All those against? The motion is carried. Thank you, everyone. We are now up to item 9.5, resource prioritisation documents for 2024-25. Is there an update?
So through the chair, we provided some responses to some informal questions to Councillor Yeomans, which are included in your yellow folders tonight. In addition, we identified in a review of the agenda that two of the resource prioritisation documents were missing from the attachment that are included as part of this agenda pack, and they were also sent out separately this afternoon. However, the council report does touch on all of the major points in those resource prioritisation documents.
Thank you. Do I have a mover for this item? Councillor Bell. Thank you. Do you wish to speak?
I just have a couple of questions, if I may.
Go ahead.
The scoring tool that is highlighted in the document, is it likely to be revised with the new community plan?
So through the chair, certainly in our review of the community plan, so the community plan sets the vision, and then the strategies that sit below that then form, the criteria that comes out in the resource prioritisation document. So as our strategies change to adjust to any changes through the community plan review, that will then be reflected in our scoring of that's included in the RPDs.
Thank you. Also, are you able to confirm how often have the economic, environmental and community outcomes that are mentioned been measured, and how are they measured? Is there an evidence-based sort of process?
So through the Mayor, there's certainly room for improvement on the evidence-based scoring. There is certainly measurement through our annual business plan measures and our annual report measures, but I think that there is some room for improvement on some areas there.
Thank you.
Councillor Dew, you second the motion? Or... Yep. Did you have some question?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm dreaming. Just in line with what Councillor Bell just said, the update, I'm assuming that, like you said, the RFD then informed budgeting processes. And so we're setting a budget for 12 months. So is it then 12 months it's revised? Because I'm considering that the open space strategic management plan plus the community plan are both up at the moment for consultation.
So through the Mayor, that's a great question, Councillor Dew. So yes, these resource prioritisation documents that are presented are to set the framework and the criteria for the budget setting for 24-25. Certainly as strategies are reviewed, such as our open space management plan and our community plan review, they'll inform future RPDs, so for future budgets. So we would envisage that through those plan reviews, that any changes to criteria and project budget allocation would take effect probably from the 25-26 financial year.
Okay, thank you. Can I move into debate?
Certainly, go ahead.
I just wanted to make a few comments. I do really appreciate and value the work that staff have done in listening to us and then reflecting that within the RFD document. You can see and hear that. Like Councillor Yeomans, it would have been great to have been able to maybe see that prior to then see if there's anything else we could contribute or think about. So I was intrigued by sort of the process, and now sort of we've got it. But it is a really fantastic document, and I did wonder, and I have spoken to
Morgan, Morgan, sorry, I spoke to Morgan about this, but what I was interested in and what I've been thinking about was how some of the prioritisation of footpaths, for example, talks about having to be sort of in an older area now and us prioritising that, and it made me think about Houghton, for example, which is kind of an old community but new and emerging at the same time with new estates, and so then where does that leave that community? Same with Aldinga, sort of Selix as well. I also thought about, in the context of footpaths, we're then looking at data that relates to aged and aging population, and was thinking, well, in isolated families with plenty of children at home, what does that mean then for our footpaths, for them to be able to get out and enjoy our community as well? So I felt like the indicators were fabulous, but at times could be limiting. And I wonder, after much conversation, I still sort of hold to this and I appreciate administration's challenge with this, but the level of trust we also put in our staff to be able to make decisions. So indicators not necessarily being fixed and concrete, and using the matrix system, but overlaying kind of common sense to our decision making. And an example that I draw on, which is not very common, I know, but in Aldinga, for example, there was an upgrade to a footpath on Prestwood Boulevard. There would have been a whole lot of rationale as to why that happened. There was already a footpath on that road, yet we've also then invested on another footpath opposite, parallel, knowing that very well Howe Road, which is another busy road, actually had no footpath at all along it. So from a community perspective, I know where the footpath they would have wanted. So how we make good decisions in that, and I feel like some of that's a level of trust, and obviously we set the environment and the conditions for that. So how do we then help that flow into policy and strategy? And I just wonder if going forward, when we think about the matrix, that we also have some sort of scope to move as well in terms of what we know about our communities. When I say we, I mean collectively the administration as well as councillors. But yeah, thank you for all the work, and it's amazing. It's really nice to be able to see the documentation starting to align to where we want things to be in the future. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Yeomans.
Just a quick question if I can. Thanks for taking the time to talk through that concern I had. That was great. I think you might have answered this one, but at what point do we get an opportunity to change anything here, these moving forward, such as the criteria or ratings allocated to the documents? And I guess I'm referring to if there was a discussion around the distance with playgrounds, how far people need to be living within those, and there was some opportunities there to discuss and thrash that out a little bit. When do we sort of get so in 12 months' time we're not presented with the same sort of thing? Yeah.
So through the Mayor, as part of the strategic review of the open space plan, there'll be opportunities for the Chamber to have input into some of those service levels and standards, such as the space in between playgrounds, for example. So as I mentioned before, to answer Councillor Drew's question, the review of our strategies and our community plan, they are the triggers for changes in our scoring mechanisms that are contained within the RPDs. So it's through those reviews that the Chamber has the opportunity to provide input and influence that will then flow through into part of this annual budgeting process step.
Certainly.
If I can just add on to Jade's comments, councillors, through this budget process as well, we're going to approach this cycle quite differently in terms of the opportunities for discussion around some of the big levers that council can look at. So while this work's happening, and this is part of our BAU that allows us to assess criteria against the strategy, there will be dedicated time for elected members to have really in-depth conversations about the priority settings for next year. I think it's really encouraging that elected members are raising questions around this document, because it is about framing that budget. There's ample opportunity in the coming weeks where we look to really engage quite heavily and deeply with councillors for a full day in the not too distant future. So this isn't the end in terms of the budget. Also very conscious, councillors, of the council plan that's currently being worked through with the community. And this year will be a bit of a transition year in terms of that. So what I mean by that is that we'll be able to see where there are linkages in terms of the work we're already doing, but then also preparing for the subsequent budget cycles and making sure that council plan linkage is really strong for our annual plan and budgeting processes. So hopefully that helps.
There being no further questions, Councillor Bell, did you want to close debate? No, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? All those against? The motion's carried. Thank you, and thanks again to all the prompt responses to elected members today. I know it really helped to inform them in their thinking and decision making tonight. 9.6, the confidential items quarterly review. Do we have a mover? Councillor Themialotis.
To move, no debate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Eaton, you seconding?
I'm second it. No.
Do any questions? Any debate? All those in favour? All those against? The motion is carried. Item 9.7, which is the council and committee reporting schedule. Councillor Themialotis to move.
Thank you.
Councillor Eaton, second.
Yep.
Thank you, Thalas Awards, for your good shared work there. Any questions? Debate? All the Councillor Yeomans, you've got a question?
Yeah, I have just a quick, I suppose, a broad question.
Certainly.
Just reading why some of these are retained in confidence, these items, and there's a lot of them in relation to the, I suppose, the water assets.
Did you mean we're on the reporting schedule? Did you mean 9.6 or 9.6?
I'm just practicing my question.
Oh, very good. I'm all in favour of good practice. Thank you. So we've actually moved from 9.6. That's what I'm suggesting. We're on to 9.7. I'll continue with 9.7 and just ignore that experience, and hopefully Councillor Yeomans will get over it. All those in favour? Against? Carried. We're now up to items 10 to 1 to 10.13, our questions on notice. There are, I think there was one that will appear in the minutes, but the rest have been answered in the agenda. 10.6 and 12 and 13 will be in the minutes. And now we move to item 11.1, and so Councillor Yeomans' early practice is now ready to go. So we have someone to move this motion. Is this Councillor Fisher? Or has he pressed the wrong one? Yeomans, I believe.
Yeah, that was
Can you turn off your...
I'll second it.
Just before the level of enthusiasm to get through this agenda is mind-blowing right now. So Councillor Yeomans, would you like to speak to the motion?
I'll speak very quickly. There's some background here it's not there, but essentially what we're looking for, what I'm seeking support here is a report that comes back to council, and it's in relation to the Aldinga Library and a multi-use centre. And just some quick background, the 22-23 annual lease fees for the Aldinga Library and the youth centre at Aldinga were considerable and measured in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. There are no lease fees for a community centre and for the recreation centre that's also operating by the council at Aldinga. It's anticipated the expenses associated with leasing the Aldinga Library up to the expiry of the current 10-year lease in 2027 would be more than $5 million. So essentially we're leasing services down there at Aldinga, including a library and a youth centre with extended leases. The lease for the existing library is due to expire on the 31st of January 2027. Whilst we're two and a half years away, council is required to issue a written request to the lessor no less than 6 months for no more than 12 months before the expiry of that current term, which again, like I said, is in 3 years' time. So we've basically got between 2 and 2.5 years to make any decisions if we're going to, what we're going to do in relation to those leases. So what the motion here is asking for a report to be presented to council within 9 months, which is, it's a long time, but this is a fairly high-level strategic approach to this that considers council constructing a fit for purpose multi-use building at Aldinga that's responsive to future needs of the community and is best practice. It will also address the leasing challenges and dispersed nature of the facilities in Aldinga. And the new building should include what we're talking about there. So not only the library and a customer service centre, but the rec centre, the reallocation of the youth centre and the community centre. And importantly, what I'd be looking for there is the report to include commercial opportunities to provide additional revenue streams to the city of Untitled. And I'll just make a final comment there that it's not the intention of this motion to reduce or remove any of these services, but to try and find a way where these services can be enhanced at reduced cost to the ratepayers. So I just seek your support in asking the council to provide that report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Fisher, did you wish to second it? Do you wish to speak? Okay. Councillor June.
Yeah.
Question or debate?
Debate, thank you.
Go ahead.
I absolutely support what Councillor Yeomans has put forward. In Aldinga obviously, as we know, caters also to the Sellex community and surrounding area. And Aldinga doesn't actually have a hub within the area. So there's a community centre, there's the library space, and then there's the new, well, it's sort of older now, but the activation around Old Coach Road. So to have a building that is multi-purpose within the heart, to create then a heart of Aldinga, would be beneficial for this community. It doesn't make sense, I'm sure, to anyone here as well as myself, that we are paying huge amounts of rental fees for the library as well as Studio 20, when at the end of the day we're not going to actually own the asset. So this, like Councillor Yeomans has clearly articulated, enables us to understand a bit more about what are the opportunities here. I didn't change it because I guess it's a nice to have, but I would love to see staff also consider how the other facilities could be utilised, and looking at what are the gaps within the area. I know the arts, there's a gap in our region, and what are the other gaps in our area, and how can we utilise existing facilities as well. Netball courts too. So yeah, how can we utilise the facilities to meet the growing needs of the community? And just, I guess the last point I would make is, like every space across council, but many of our spaces in Aldinga are ageing, and so we're putting money into facilities like the community centre, for example, or the senior sits building, that are just propping them up. And that money injecting, if only we could then put it into a new build or something like that, it would be very beneficial for the long term, because at the moment all we're doing is band-aiding. So yeah, I think I absolutely support Councillor Yeomans in this report. Coming back.
Thank you. Any further questions? Debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? All those against? The motion is carried. Thank you, everyone. On item 12.1, so we're now into petitions. Is there an update from staff? I believe there is. Thank you.
Through the chair. I'd just like to advise that further to this report, staff have since received numerous questions from major members. A copy of those questions and responses has been provided to you, and we refer you to the councillor questions on agenda items, informal questions and staff updates. There is also including attachment A. And just to further elaborate, since that report, there's mention there of the contractual arrangements. We just wanted to highlight that we have made provision that, dependent on this outcome of tonight, that flexibility has been provided in that contract.
Thank you. Councillor Patton.
Thank you. Mayor, I'd like to move with some changes to the recommendations if I can. And given how tired Sue's fingers are, I've sent her my proposed changes.
Thank you. We really appreciate that. And is that what appears on the screen?
That's correct.
Okay.
If council would like to read them, or do you want me to read them out?
I think you can read them out.
Yep. So number 1 stays the same. So council receives a petition in attachment 1 to the agenda report. Number 2, council proceed with all Beach Road streetscape improvements except node 1 located outside Beach Point Apartments. Dot point 3, council undertakes further investigations to replicate node 1 at alternative locations, considering the petition and deputation presented at council meeting 23/1/24 and the price stated in the tender document. When considering the alternative node location, council will explore all suitable locations, including the foreshore and the entirety of Beach Road up until Dyson Road. This should reflect the current growth of Beach Road, but still align with the outcomes of the Beach Road project and funding agreement principles that benefit local businesses, visitors and the community, providing people more opportunity to stop and linger while supporting local businesses. It will be reasonable for the new site to be outside of the current location scope, and the finding of this investigation will be reported to the council in March 2024 council meeting. The head petitioner, number 4, the head petitioner be notified of council's decision.
Thank you. Do you wish to debate?
I would love to debate.
Go ahead.
So I was lucky enough to receive a phone call from the head petitioner, Neil, early this month, asking if I had any updates to conversations that we'd had in the bakery where the proposed node is going to be outside of. I had absolutely no idea what Cornelius was talking about, and that's because I wasn't there. So what really was profound to me was that while Neil had brought this to my attention, it certainly wasn't just him that had an issue with the placement of the node. And he felt that he would like the opportunity to be involved in a consultation. And he felt like him and the other apartment owners didn't get the opportunity. Now, I can't speak to why that is, whether they all missed the letter. But what I can speak to is that of the 69 people that did participate in the consultation, if we add the 30 petition signatures into those statistics, it really does bring down the love of that particular node. Now, they've come here today and they've said that they have absolutely no issue with all the other streetscape improvements. In fact, they have no issue with the node itself, but they just have an issue with the placement of the node. I was fortunate to go with Councillor Wilkes and meet, not just Neil, I thought I was just meeting Neil. We had a whole cohort of people meet us out the front of Beach Point Apartments. And you really did feel like they wanted the best for Christie's Beach. They're so proud of where they live, but they felt that this wasn't the best use of what they thought was council funds, but what is actually state government funding. There's so many opportunities on Beach Road to do amazing things. And is taking away a car park out the front of people's apartments to put a bench and a tree the best use of that is the question you've got to ask yourself. Now that we've had 30 residents, probably more, say that that's not what they want to see, I'm not the one that has to sit there and live with that decision. They do. They have to sit there every day and contemplate why a car park was taken away from the front of their building, why a stormwater drain was relocated, and why a table and chairs was put there when we have ample opportunity throughout Beach Road to put amazing things that will attract, help businesses and evolve the space. Now, if this was brought to my attention earlier, we could have had many conversations about how we could place it, where we could put it. But unfortunately, for whatever reason, they didn't have the ability to be involved in the consultation. And so that wasn't included in my data. Given their previous experience with the parklet, given the sentiment of the residents in the apartment complex, and given how the data was presented to me, I think that we need to take a step back on this particular node, put our foot on the brake, and just have a consultation and think about where we can put this node that will suit a community. Now, there's heaps of other spaces, as I've already outlined about 6 times. So I feel like the changes that we've represented here today will help a community really get around what we're trying to do down on Beach Road. It's an evolving space. It's an amazing space. If anyone was down there for the tour down under, you'd understand how much that community has to offer. And I think that we need to be there and listen to what they have to say.
Thank you, Councillor Platten. Councillor Wilkes, are you seconding?
Yes, I'd love to second.
Do you wish to question or debate?
I can't do a question before I debate, can I?
Yeah.
Okay, then I'll ask a question.
You're seconding.
Pardon?
You're going to second, so figure.
Okay. If the park, okay, I get what you mean. If the parklet was, this is the staff, if the parklet was roped off at the suggestion of staff to counteract the activity in that area, how were you planning on controlling people sitting in that area once you built this new node?
Through the chair, the way in which the parklet complaint was handled and bringing those measures, something that's just come to our attention. The manager is no longer here. Having said that, we're trying to activate the area and provide seating. So it's going to be public space in terms of understanding a bit more from the deputation this afternoon as to what they experienced. That was something hopeful, but it wasn't something that we were considering as part of that.
Okay. And then one other question I have is, when someone lives so close, or the Beach Point apartments are so close to a node, are they considered a key stakeholder?
Through the chair, they were treated equally with all the others within that catchment, so they would have received the same information within that area.
Okay. Debate? Yep, perfect. I'll go on to debate. So I agree with Councillor Platten and the recommendations he's put forth. I think a picture tells 1,000 words, and having that meeting with Neil and Margaret and the fellow, all the other Beach Point apartments, it's really humbling to hear that they love living in their space. They love having the bakery underneath. They do not have a problem with the bakery underneath. The view is not directly at their apartment. They do not mind the massive park on the side. There's no noise complaints. Everything has been there. They have more than happy with all of that, and documenting it in the photo shows that although from the park you can see into some of the residences, there's no problem. The problem is putting a seat 5 metres away from the house that looks directly into their residents. Now, that was a problem when the parklet was put there in 2020, and council offered to opaque their windows and offered to rope off the area. So I question why they were not considered, or that wasn't considered when this node was put forth. Personally, myself as the elected member, when these nodes came out in 2023, February, wrote an email to council because I had residents concerned about the fact the car park was going. So I wrote that email and asked, why are you removing a car park when we have so many other locations on Beach Road? And the response I got was that the engagement material is currently being finalised and it will be presented to all key stakeholders, including Mark from the bakery. So I just wonder why the beachwide this has seemed to progress to the point where it's going out to tender, yet the key stakeholders who we said have a problem with it and they weren't notified. And when they have been notified of it and expressed concern, then council have met with them, and the ward councillors who also expressed concern weren't met. So I welcome Councillor Platten's suggestion to look at alternative locations, and I think the scope of pushing it across all of Beach Road for the whole 3 kilometres is a great idea. I think this node itself, the other problem that I would like to highlight with it is there is a stormwater drain right next to it. So I think I'll ask a question about how much that actually costs to move, and if it is more cost effective to consider nodes in a different location. So I really hope that the report will outline that. I hope that you councillors will take note of how close this is to residences and how important it is to Neil and the Beachwood apartments that they still get to love where they live. They still understand that underneath them will be a premise. The park next to them is there, but they really don't want it 5 metres from their balcony.
Thank you. No further questions, no further debate. Councillor Platten, would you like to close debate? Can you press your... Thank you.
I'd love to close. So I think to sum up what I'm trying to do here is to represent the residents of a community who at whatever stage they found out about the node have done exactly what I would tell a member of the community to do. And that is to come to the chamber and talk to us and to bring a petition, because that helps inform us of what relevance it has to us. Now, this particular node only affects those residents, but there's a lot of residents there. Do I think weighing up someone's place of living versus a bench that they're going to have a pie at, potentially, on that level of importance, I think that residents have the right to speak up and to be heard when there's a problem. Now, these residents love where they live, as Councillor Wilkes pointed out. I think Neil's apartment was one of the best dressed at the tour down under. So I don't think that they don't want to see an amazing future for Christie's Beach. In fact, I think it wouldn't be in their benefit to see an amazing future of Christie's Beach. But in this particular scenario, they just want to be heard by the council and understood. And I feel like they've had the opportunity to do that. And so I thank them very much for coming in.
And so I'll put the motion. All those in favour? All those against? The motion is carried. Thank you very much. Good work, everyone. We are now, is there any urgent business? No urgent business. We are now moving into confidential items, and do I have someone who's willing to move us into confidential exclusion? Thank you, Councillor Bell.